Chapter 2502. Third Madame Zhuang responded with a solemn expression. She did not dare to be careless. She pressed one hand on his chest and held the hilt of the saber with the other. Then, she took a deep breath and pulled the saber out almost instantly. At the same time, her fingers quickly pressed on the acupoints near his wound. Although there was some blood flowing out, there was no spurting. Seeing this, she couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Fortunately, his heart meridian wasn't injured. If the knife pierced the heart meridian, pulling the knife out would only hasten his death. Yuan Zi, who had been clenching her fists nervously, couldn't help choking with sobs. Brother Song Bao, who was sleeping like a piglet on a small bed, rubbed her sleepy eyes and got up. "Mother, what's wrong?" Zhuang hugged her daughter tightly as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Bao, your father is fine." Song Bao blinked her eyes. It was obvious that she did not understand what was going on at her age. Third Madame Zhuang applied the ointment and bandaged his wound before leaving. Zhuang wanted to come and see him but was blocked by Yuan Zi with a vigilant look. Song Qinshu said weakly, "No, let her come over." Yuan Zi stepped aside unhappily. Zhuang sat on the edge of the bed with a sad and regretful look. "Brother Song, I'm sorry." Song Qinshu shook his head slightly. "You don't have to apologize. Actually, I had already guessed that such a day would come. You are a person who values friendship and righteousness. If you knew the whole story and remained indifferent, you would not be the Zhuang that I like." Zhuang instantly choked up. "Big brother Song Qinshu forced a smile. "But do you still want to take revenge in the future? If it's not enough, I'll stab you now. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have another chance in the future." Zhuang shook her head with all her might. No. Actually, I already regretted my actions earlier. Especially when I saw the knife in your chest, I finally understood what I truly cared about. If you really died, I'm afraid I wouldn't want to live either. Now that you've survived, it means that this is the will of the heavens. Now I don't care about anything, I just want you to be well." Song Qinshu was finally relieved when he saw how flustered she was and how her words were messed up. The weight that had been weighing on his heart for many years had finally been lifted. Wei Xiaobao's matter in the past had always been a thorn in their hearts. He knew that sooner or later it would explode. Zhuang was a sentimental person. Once she found out, she would definitely not remain indifferent. But he really admired and liked Zhuang's temperament, so he could not harden his heart to take any extreme measures against her. What's more, she had given birth to his child, so he could only exchange sincerity for sincerity and completely untie the knot in her heart. Of course, he was not a reckless person. He would never commit suicide. Not only would he be irresponsible to himself, but he would also be irresponsible to so many women. Earlier, Third Madame Zhuang had mentioned that his heart was located more to the right than an ordinary person's, so the stab to his chest had missed its mark. In fact, he had used his internal energy to shift his internal organs to avoid the stab. At the same time, the blade was wrapped in internal energy throughout the entire process, so even if half of the blade was stabbed in, it would only be a superficial wound. The reason why it looked so frightening was that, first, it was stabbed in the position of his heart, and second, he had deliberately used his internal energy to force out a lot of blood. Of course, with Zhuang's shrewdness, she might not be unable to figure this out in the future, but it was no longer important. The knot in their hearts had been completely untied. On the surface, the stab just now was to give Wei Xiaobao an explanation, but in fact, it was to give Zhuang an explanation. After this stab, she would no longer have to bear the guilt and pain, and it could be considered that she had completely fulfilled her responsibility to Wei Xiaobao. In the future, she would be able to live with him with a clear conscience. Yuan Zi, who was standing to the side, could not help but say, "Miss Zhuang, why did you make a move this time after not making a move for so many years?" As an outsider, she was aware of the abnormality. As if awakened from a dream, Shuang hurriedly replied, Big Brother Song, you have to be careful during this period. It seems that someone is secretly plotting against you. Song Qingshu was stunned. Shuang explained, in fact, although I had some doubts about Xiaobao's matter, I did not have any evidence. At the same time, I deliberately did not think in that direction. However, some time ago, someone sent me a letter and provided a lot of evidence and statements. Then I was sure about Xiaobao's matter. When you suddenly came this time, I subconsciously thought of Xiaobao's matter, so. Song Qingshu patted her hand to comfort her. At the same time, he was lost in thought. No wonder Yingying said that she felt there was a big net. Now he also had the same feeling. Obviously, the other party had investigated for a long time and looked for various possibilities to deal with him. In the past, he hid in the dark and was naturally successful in every endeavor. But now, a tall tree attracted the wind. There must be many people studying his weaknesses. In fact, many things could not stand the investigation. Even the secret of disguise might not be able to be concealed for a long time. But now, he did not care about these. Even if he was exposed, so what? His layout had begun to change from a secret plot to an open one. In the face of absolute power and strength, these plots and tricks were meaningless. But he was a little curious about what weakness the other party would find. Hey, isn't my weakness lust? At this time, Shuang continued to say, there are some contact information in the letter. They asked me to go to Lin and recently. They have a way to help me deal with you. But this is only between us. How can I cooperate with outsiders to deal with you? Song Qingshu shook his head. No, you promise them. Pretend to cooperate with them to deal with me. In this way, you can infiltrate the inside and find out what is going on. Shuang was stunned. But she was also a smart person. She immediately responded, okay. Song Qingshu then said to Yuan Zi, you stay here to help Shuang. After all, she is a little weak. If you get any news, inform me as soon as possible. Yuan Zi immediately became anxious. What about you? You are seriously injured now. How can no one take care of you? She thought of Zhou Jiruo's repeated instructions before leaving, but he was seriously injured this time. If something happened later, she would be too ashamed to show her face. Song Qingshu said with a smile, don't worry. The stab just now didn't hurt my heart meridian. I will be fine after resting for 2 days. With my current cultivation, unless I want to, no one can hurt me. Hearing his words, Shuang's heart trembled. She knew clearly that if he had not been willing to be stabbed by her, how could she have hurt him just now? Thinking of this, she felt more and more guilty. After a night's rest, the next day, Song Qingshu insisted on leaving for Lin. Shuang and Yuan Zi naturally did not want him to take risk. After all, he had been seriously injured. Song Qingshu knew that his injury looked scary, but in fact, it was not serious. So he asked Third Madame Zhuang to check him. Third Madame Zhuang was very surprised that he had recovered so fast. It was really amazing. In the end, she could only sigh that the cultivation of a great master was unfathomable, and his recovery ability was far better than that of ordinary people. After getting the approval of Third Madame Zhuang, the two women were relieved to let him go. On the way to Lin, Song Qingshu heard a lot of rumors in some teahouses on the outskirts of the city before he entered the city. For example, when King Qi was in power, he controlled Zhao Go with a puppet, and he was ambitious. And when he was besieged by 3 Mongolian great masters in Helen City, he had already died there. Of course, all of this was not as explosive as another piece of news, which was the rumor that he had an affair with Huang Rong. Why did someone have such a great malice towards Shuang? If he remembered correctly, there had been foreshadowing several times a long time ago. Shuang would avenge Wei Xiaobao. Why was he so surprised? If Shuang knew the truth and remained indifferent, such a woman would be even more disappointing, wouldn't she? Chapter 2503. Song Qingshu was dumbfounded. He never thought that this matter would spread. Those people talked about it as if they had seen it with their own eyes. Although many of the stories were not true, many of them were close to the truth. He didn't know if the other party was spreading rumors or if they really knew about him and Huang Rong. This is going to be troublesome. Song Qingshu was curious about how the other party would deal with him. He thought that contacting Shuang to assassinate him was already the most exaggerated plan. He didn't expect that there would be something even more difficult to deal with. Huang Rong had always had a good reputation in Jianghu. Although it was affected by Guojing's usurpation, many people still loved and respected her. In addition, the Southern Song dynasty paid a lot of attention to etiquette and morality. If they attacked him from this angle, he really couldn't defend himself. Public opinion couldn't be forcefully changed by force. It made it impossible for him to use his unparalleled martial arts. Moreover, after his reputation was ruined, it would be difficult for him to do anything in the future, just like Wu Sangui. Hearing many of the surrounding tea guests talking about the romantic affair between the two of them, Song Qingshu's face was as black as charcoal. Sure enough, no matter which world it was, gossip was the most loved by the common people. He didn't know how much pressure Rong was under now. Also, what would Guo Jing's reaction be when he found out? Thinking of this, Song Qingshu felt a headache. After entering the city, he thought about it and went to the Wang family's mansion. Because of the battle on Mount Wudong, the Wang family was theoretically his ally. They were in the same boat. But he didn't understand why the Wang family just watched the whole process when the Jia family and Shi family made things difficult. After he was announced at the door, he was led in. As soon as he entered the study, several sharp swords stabbed at him. Song Qingshu coldly snorted and waved his sleeve. The sharp swords in those people's hands were instantly broken. One by one, they fell to the wall as if they were hit in the chest. Wang Ziding, is this how you treat your friends? He stared coldly at the middle-aged man in the study. Wang Ziding's eyebrows jumped. He didn't expect that the carefully selected top masters would be so weak in front of him. His cultivation was now really unfathomable. You still have the nerve to come see me? Wang Ziding also snorted coldly. Song Qingshu was stunned. Not only was the other party not guilty, but he was also very angry. What was going on? What do you mean? What do you mean? Wang Ziding stood up. Li Qingluo is the daughter-in-law of our Wang family. My younger brother was unlucky and died young, causing her to be a widow at a young age. But all of this is not a reason for you to make my younger brother a cuckold. You know? Song Qingshu was shocked. Now that it had come to this, he disdained to quibble. He was just shocked that the mastermind behind the scenes had investigated so thoroughly about him. He was really unscrupulous. Humph, if you don't want others to know, then don't do it. Although our Wang family isn't a great family, we can't tolerate such humiliation. Wang Ziding sneered. Song Qingshu finally understood why the change in Lin, and why the Wang family's attitude was so ambiguous. It turned out that the problem was here. He replied unhurriedly, Your thinking is really not in line with the identity of a patriarch of a big family. Compared with the rise and fall of the family, you should be clear about which is more important. Wang Ziding snorted. I don't need you to teach me this. If it were another person, I would turn a blind eye, but Li Qingluo humph. The basis of our previous alliance was the engagement between you and Yu Yen. Now in this situation, I know that you have been deceiving me all the time. Song Qingshu finally understood everything that he could not understand before. It was no wonder that the Wang family would sit on the sidelines. They no longer had the basis of an alliance with him. Instead, they had in-laws with the Jia family and the Shi family. The person hiding in the dark was indeed brilliant in taking drastic measures. You have nothing to say, right? Wang Ziding said in a low voice. If you leave now, I can pretend that you have never been here. Otherwise, don't blame me for informing the Jia and Shi families and using the power of the front palace department. Naturally, Song Qingshu didn't want to leave like this. If he did, he would completely lose the most advantageous alliance. He hesitated for a moment and said, I still say the same thing. For the rise and fall of a big family, those rules of etiquette are nothing. Wang Ziding fell into silence. He knew that what Wang Ziding said was also true. Those rules of etiquette were more likely to deceive ordinary people, but these nobles didn't take them seriously. Years ago, a servant of the Jia family scolded that in their whole family, only the pair of stone lions in front of the door was clean, and there were many dirty things inside. In fact, not only the Jia family but all other families were like this. Although the thing about Li Qingluo was difficult for ordinary people to accept, it was not a problem at all for big families. She had been a widow in her youth, and it was expected that she would find a man in these years. Wang Ziding wasn't angry because of this, but because of her relationship with Wang Yuyan. It should be known that Wang Yuyan was the foundation of the alliance between the Wang family and Song Qingshu. Now all of this no longer existed. Song Qingshu thought quickly and quickly understood what Wang Ziding was thinking. He answered, The thing about me and Li Qingluo is at most a rumor. It is impossible for others to have proof. When the time comes, we just have to deny it. Also, the marriage with Wang Yuyan is still the same. Isn't it fine? Wang Ziding was so angry that he laughed. How can you say such shameless words so confidently? Song Qingshu said calmly, You should know that although the Jia and Shi families used to be glorious, they have already been greatly weakened. Also, this plot to usurp the throne will not end well. Even if they are lucky and succeed, your Wang family will definitely be under them. How can your cooperation with them compare to cooperation with me? The reason why I arranged the marriage with Wang Yuyan was completely because of the situation at the Wutang Mountain. We were not familiar with each other and needed this to build trust and alliance. But some time ago, our two families worked together and are already familiar with each other. Whether we really need to marry her or not will not affect us at all. Of course, if you are still worried, I still agree to the marriage. If you think that Wang Yuyan's status is unacceptable, you can also find any daughter in the Wang family. I have no problem with that, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. He couldn't help but sigh. Today, he was indeed much more mature than before. He could use marriage as a bargaining chip without hesitation. Sigh, was this the inevitable price of maturity? Wang Ziding's expression changed. Clearly, he was also thinking about what Wang Ziding had said. In fact, he was also not willing to cooperate with the Jia and Shi families, so he had been watching from the sidelines. At the same time, he also knew that after the situation was settled, the Jia and Shi families might not be able to tolerate him. After understanding all these, he gradually calmed down and said, Okay, but this time the matter is not simple. The whole thing is too strange. I suspect that there is someone behind the Jia and Shi families. So before everything is clear, I can't let the Wang family take the risk. As long as you have the ability to settle this matter, our previous alliance is still valid. During this period, I can even use the power of the Wang family to help you. But all this is on the premise that I need to make sure that you have the upper hand this time. Song Qingshu nodded. He knew that these big families were very cunning and would not release the eagle without seeing the rabbit. But it was enough to make sure that the Wang family would not help the Jia and Shi families. Now that the other party agreed to help him at the right time, it was already beyond his expectation. Wang Ziding hesitated for a moment, then said, Also, regarding the matter of the marriage alliance, there is no need to choose another daughter of the Wang family. Let's choose Yuyan. In his heart, he was clear that none of the ladies of the Wang clan who were suitable for marriage could compare to Wang Yuyan, and Song Qingshu was famous for having many beauties by his side. If an ordinary daughter of the Wang clan was not favored by Song Qingshu, it would instead be disadvantageous to the Wang clan. Rather than that, he might as well be more generous and send the most outstanding one over. This way, the Wang clan would be able to benefit the most in the future. This time, it was Song Qingshu's turn to be shocked. But her identity is a little troublesome. Wang Zhiting's expression was as calm as still water. You don't have to worry about that. I will take care of it myself. I have found an artist to draw the original art of Gu Bai and Dongfang Muxue. If anyone is interested, you can go to the official account, Monk Lu Ru, check it out. Also, please send me your address, smiley face, 4097382219, for the Alliance Master of Stealing Fragrance and the new book Deity of Land. In recent years, they have given out too much money, far more than the cost of reading the book. It would be embarrassing if they did not send some peripherals. I plan to send you a full-size bolster with Gu Bai's image printed on it. If the rewards for the other 2 books are combined and satisfy the Alliance Master, you can also contact me. Chapter 2504. After coming out of the Wang family, Song Qingshu felt much more relaxed. The Wang family had not been roped in by the hidden forces. His neutrality had helped him to a certain extent. Moreover, Wang Zhiting had promised that as long as he was sure that he could settle this matter, he would help. This result was already much better than he had expected. After coming out of the Wang family, Song Qingshu turned around and walked to the nearby Li family. The houses of the officials and nobles in the imperial court were relatively close. He wanted to find Chancellor Li Shouzhong to ask about the situation. After all, the Li family was also one of the few in the imperial court who were on his side. Who knew that when he arrived at the Li family, he would be rejected at the door. Li Shouzhong did not want to see him. Isn't this old man too much of a traitor? Song Qingshu felt his teeth itch. He had helped the Li family a lot. How could they turn their backs on him just like that? Naturally, he would not give up just because the door was rejected. He planned to jump into the backyard and directly find Li Shouzhong to ask about the situation. Unexpectedly, when he jumped into the backyard, he saw a beautiful woman dressed as a Taoist nun looking at him with a faint smile. I was right. Your skill at stealing women is really not bad. Being caught in the act, Song Qingshu's face turned red. Macho, were you waiting for me here? The woman in front of him was naturally Li Macho. Hearing him call her that, Li Macho raised her eyebrows. Don't call me that. I'm here because I don't want you to disturb my father. It's not that I want to say this, but your father is a bit of a traitor, Song Qingshu said resentfully. Don't speak ill of my father. Li Macho raised her eyebrows. But you flirted everywhere and got yourself a bad reputation. My father is a Confucian scholar and pays attention to such things. How could he have anything to do with you? She paused and added, but he hinted me to come find you. It's good for you. Song Qingshu laughed. Your father knows that I have a bad reputation, yet he still sent his daughter here. Is he trying to matchmake us? Bah! Li Macho's expression instantly changed. Don't blame me for being ruthless if you keep this up. All right. Who doesn't know that the Scarlet Serpent Fairy can't stand being teased? Song Qingshu knew that if it weren't for the fact that she couldn't beat him, he would have already used the Hail Silver Needles. In the past few years, there were many underworld figures who had ideas about her, but now the grass on their graves was very tall. By the way, why don't I see your sister? Don't you come out to thank your savior? Last time in the desert, Li Macho brought Li Wenxiu back to Jiangnan, so she should be in the mansion. Don't you dare have any ideas about my younger sister. Li Macho's face was vigilant. I came here to tell you one thing, that is, Miss Rin is currently recuperating in Guling's courtyard. In addition, many people from Qi Wangfu and the Imperial Palace have followed her there. Song Qingshu's expression turned serious. Are they safe now? Li Macho nodded. They are quite safe. It seems that the Jia and Shi families, as well as Guojing's side, have reached a tacit understanding with them. Although there are troops stationed around to monitor their movements, no one has touched them. Then she said in a complicated tone mixed with admiration, "After all, you are a great grandmaster. Most people don't want to fight to the death with you. There are many people who secretly plot against me." Song Qingshu laughed at himself. This world was like this. When you were weak, a group of strong people came to deal with you. When you were strong, they couldn't fight you head-on and all began to use crafty plots, leaving you with no place to use your strength. After bidding farewell to Limacho, Song Qingshu went all the way to Guling. Guling was located near the Gem Mountain to the north of West Lake. The famous Taoist Gu Hong of the Eastern Jin dynasty used to refine pills here, hence the name. Guling was lush with trees and the environment was quiet and secluded. Many high-ranking officials and nobles had residences here. Previously, Prince Qi also had one here. Unexpectedly, Lin An had become a refuge. As Song Qingshu hurried along, he did discover many warriors and soldiers stationed nearby. They should be the ones Li Macho mentioned to keep an eye on Ren Yingying and her party. He noticed that many of them were spies from the Imperial City Department. His heart couldn't help but sink. Could it be that the Shui family is also involved? However, he wasn't surprised. When he returned from Mount Wudong, his biggest opponents in the imperial court were the Shi and Shui families. The two families had always been on the same side. It was only natural for them to be involved this time. Thinking of the gentle and considerate Shui Baochai on the way to the Xixia marriage, Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. It seemed that they were destined to become enemies. Unknowingly, he had already arrived at Prince Qi's residence. Avoiding the spies in the surroundings, Song Qingshu found a place to sneak in. Not long after he walked in the courtyard, a black shadow suddenly attacked him. A palm was aimed at the vital acupoint on his chest. Feeling a faint suction force coming from the other party's palm, Song Qingshu flicked his finger and temporarily sealed the acupoint on the other party's wrist. Then, he said, "Father-in-law, it's me." The person opposite him was tall, had a head of white hair, and a pair of domineering eyebrows. If it wasn't Ren Wuxing, who else could it be? Qingshu. Ren Wuxing was overjoyed to see Song Qingshu. He hurriedly pulled him inside. "You're finally back. Yingying will be very happy to see you." Yingying, look who's here," he shouted as he walked. Soon, a beautiful figure came out. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, but Ren Yingying was still as beautiful as ever. Her skin was originally white, but because of the after-effects of the burning blood technique, she now looked even more delicate and pale. However, not only did this not damage her charm, but it also made her even more charming. Big Brother Song Ren Yingying was a little puzzled at first, but when she saw her lover's appearance, she instantly covered her mouth in surprise and jumped into his arms. Ren Wuxing's expression softened a little. His daughter had grown terrifyingly mature during this period of time, which made him, as her father, feel extremely distressed. Now that she had regained the appearance of a little girl, he couldn't help but feel comforted. "Yingying, you've worked hard during this period of time." Song Qingshu didn't need to ask to know how much pressure she had endured during the incident in Linnan. Ren Yingying choked with sobs. "Big Brother Song, I'm sorry. I've made a mess of the situation here." Song Qingshu shook his head. Patting her delicate shoulder, he consoled. "What does all of this count for? The entire foundation of the Prince of Qi cannot even compare to a single finger of yours. It's good that you are fine." Ren Wuxing, who was at the side, was somewhat unhappy and hurriedly said, "Yingying deliberately lured the snake out of its hole. Qi Mansion's properties didn't suffer any losses." "What's going on?" Song Qingshu asked curiously. Ren Yingying's face reddened and she began to explain. It turned out that when she sensed the unusual movements of the Jia and Shi clan, she didn't choose to use her power to suppress them. Instead, she endured and retreated step by step. A large part of the reason why the Jia and Shi clan succeeded in supporting Guijing as the emperor was because of her indulgence. Why did you do this? Song Qingshu was somewhat curious. With Ren Yingying's temperament, she definitely wouldn't speak without thinking. Ren Yingying looked at him quietly, and after a long time she said, "Big brother Song, I also know of your ambitions. However, the great Song Emperor's kindness to the scholarly officials is extremely popular. Rather than bear the infamy in the future, it's better to borrow the hands of others to do those evil deeds, and then come out to clean up the mess." Dongfang Mushue's original artwork had already been posted on the public account. Chapter 2505. Song Qingshu was startled. He couldn't help but sigh. She was indeed farsighted. Before Wang Mang usurped the Han dynasty, he was recognized as a saint by the whole nation. He was on par with the Duke of Zhou. But once he usurped the throne, he immediately became a notorious character. Although his reputation was good, it was far from Wang Mang's. Moreover, there were still many rumors going around. If he really usurped the throne, he would definitely be condemned by the whole world. Now that someone was the first to take the risk of universal condemnation, many of the subsequent matters would be much easier. Seeing that he didn't speak, Ren Yingying said timidly, "Do you think I'm too bad?" Song Qingshu laughed and pulled her into his arms. "Of course not. I think you're the saintess who commands the world. You did very well, you helped me solve a problem that gave me a headache." Ren Wuxing, the big light bulb, also walked out of the room when he saw how intimate they were. He even thoughtfully closed the door for them. He thought to himself that Song Qingshu was much better than that sickly Ling Huchong. In the past, Yingying could only carefully show her bright side in front of Ling Huchong. She was afraid that she would offend Ling Huchong. Although Yingying was kind, she was still Ren Wuxing's daughter, the saintess of the Sun-Moon sect. She had dug out the eyes, chopped off the hands, and exiled her disobedient subordinates. Although Yingying was generally bright, she also had a dark side. Only Song Qingshu could tolerate and appreciate everything about her. At this moment, his black-bellied and arrogant daughter was blushing in Song Qingshu's arms. She said with some rebuke, "Brother Song, can you not do this in front of Dad in the future? I'm very embarrassed." "What does it matter? Isn't it natural for a husband to hug his wife? So what if father-in-law saw it?" Song Qingshu said righteously. Ren Yingying knew his temperament and that it would be difficult for him to change. She could only blush and let him be. "Oh right, what's going on with Guijing? Why did he rebel and proclaim himself the emperor? It doesn't seem like his personality." Song Qingshu couldn't help but ask. "I think he's Chai Rong's descendant, but I'm not sure about the specifics." Ren Yingying shook her head. "It seems that the Xiaoyao sect is also involved." Heavenly Mountain Tonglao came in person, so the four younger sisters, Mei, Lan, Zhu and Ju, had to listen to her. The imperial palace changed hands so quickly. Due to the uniqueness of the imperial palace, they had arranged for these female disciples of the Vulture Palace to be in charge of guarding and monitoring the inner palace. Who would have thought that the people of the Carefree sect would suddenly come out, giving them an opening to exploit? Heavenly Mountain Maiden? Song Qingshu was shocked. The last time they parted, he had lost contact with her. How could he have known that when he heard the news, they had already become enemies? Other than the Xiaoyao school, there are also people from the Tianming sect. According to my father, Fu Yaohong was the she-devil from beyond the Great Wall decades ago. I don't know if it's a Mongolian plot, Ren Yingying continued. Fu Yaohong should be doing this for her family's mission. Song Qingshu roughly explained the relationship between the Fu and Chai families. Ren Yingying finally understood. "By the way, I've also picked up Aku Yuan and Hu." "You don't have to worry about them," Ren Yingying said. "These people originally lived in the imperial palace." Song Qingshu couldn't help sighing. "You're really my good wife. I thought the changes in Lin and would be very troublesome, but it turns out that everything is under your control." Ren'ying pursed her lips and smiled. I'm just a fox assuming the majesty of a tiger. In the end, it's because of your reputation that those people don't dare to make things difficult for us. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy to pick them up. Song Qinshu couldn't help lifting her smooth jade-like chin and kissing her red lip. After a long time, they separated. Sage Nun, do you think you're a vixen? You're so annoying. Ren'ying raised her pink fist and punched his chest. Noticing the pain between his eyebrows, she was shocked. What's wrong? Are you hurt? Who else in the world can hurt you? Song Qinshu couldn't help admiring her cleverness. Just a moment of reaction made her guess a thing or two. He said, I'm fine. It's just a minor injury. By the way, on my way here, I heard that the Crown Prince started an uprising in Huzhou and called the whole country to protect the Emperor. But it was suppressed in an instant. Where is he now? He didn't want to tell them that Shuang tried to assassinate him, so as not to cause a grudge between the sisters. He had specially told Yuanzi before. Ren'ying confirmed again and again that he was fine and then breathed a sigh of relief. The Crown Prince's uprising is really strange. With his talent, he shouldn't do such a thing like hitting a stone with an egg. But he just took less than 100 servants to do it. It's really incredible. The uprising was suppressed by the state army this time. The Crown Prince was also escorted back to Linen. Now he should be imprisoned in the imperial palace. After all, Guojing and these people don't have a deep foundation in the imperial court. I'm afraid that they will be secretly released by people loyal to Zhao Song if they are put in the Ministry of Justice or the Supreme Judiciary. Song Qinshu couldn't help but feel a little confused. Logically speaking, such a former crown prince should be killed on the spot after being caught. Anyway, he could say that he died in the chaotic army, and no one could verify it. That would be the end of it. But it was another thing to catch the crown prince. Should he put him on trial? Everyone knew that he was plotting to usurp the throne. He was a decent crown prince. Why would he be put on trial? It would be more troublesome to let him die secretly in the prison. It would definitely cause public outrage. No one would believe that a good person would die in the prison. All kinds of conspiracy theories would immediately spread all over the world. So no matter how he looked at it, it was not a wise choice to catch the crown prince. Ren'ying also agreed. She thought for a while and said, Is it possible that Guojing is kind so he did this? It's possible. Song Qinshu fell into deep thought. Whether it is or not, it seems that I need to go to the imperial palace. Ren'ying frowned slightly. But I don't think it is wise for you to go to the imperial palace now. The matter between you and Huang Rong has spread all over the world. It is impossible for Guojing to not have any ideas. If he really turns against you, and you are injured now, I'm afraid you will be in danger. When he heard her mention Huang Rong, there was some reproach in her eyes. Song Qinshu also blushed and hurriedly said, Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. They can't hurt me. There are many doubts that I can't rest assured if I don't personally ask Guojing. Seeing that he was determined, Ren'ying no longer tried to persuade him. Okay then, I will arrange for someone to meet you outside the imperial palace. Song Qinshu did not refuse. Ren'ying then led him to the backyard to visit Aku, Zhao Yuanyuan, Zhao Huer and the other women. When the women saw him, they were obviously overjoyed, and each of them had a lot to say. Song Qinshu comforted them. Because he still had to go into the imperial palace to investigate, he did not have time to tell them in detail. He promised to chat with them when he returned. Aku was fine, but Zhao Yuanyuan and Zhao Huan tearfully begged him to help. Although they had no feelings for Zhao Go, they were still the descendants of their ancestors. They still had a certain sense of belonging to their country. Naturally, they did not want to see Zhao Song's country fall into the hands of others. Song Qinshu agreed, but he was thinking in his heart. If one day he replaced Zhao Song, he did not know what the sisters' attitude would be. On the way to the imperial palace, He could not help but feel that it was a lifetime ago. Before, he came here as if he was returning home, but now he was sneaking around like a thief. With the current situation, it was naturally not convenient for him to enter the imperial palace openly. He could only climb over the wall. He was very familiar with the layout of the imperial palace and easily went to the inner courtyard of the imperial palace. Suddenly, there was a commotion not far ahead. A group of guards seemed to be chasing something. In front of them was a man and a woman. When he saw their faces, he could not help but be shocked. "It's her." He could not help but sigh. The Alliance Master was indeed a winner in life. Each of them had a wife or a girlfriend. Most of them could not accept a full-sized pillow. Speaking of which, what were you thinking? It's not like you're giving me a doll. Also, by Hilang, Bingo Big Ice Fruit, I Fly Take You Fly, LZ123321, Uncle Hao Shu, and a few other big bosses. Please contact me. Even if you don't want a pillow, you can change it to a mouse pad with character artwork or something. Chapter 2506. The man's face was pale, and there were many bloodstains on his body and the corners of his mouth. He looked to be in an extremely sorry state. The woman beside him was graceful and beautiful. Her bright yellow dress was extremely eye-catching, and people could recognize her at a glance. However, her dress was slightly damaged. The yellow-robed woman? Song Qingshu was a little surprised. The yellow-robed woman's martial arts were almost on par with the Grandmaster's. How could she be in such a sorry state? The man beside her also looked somewhat familiar. Song Qingshu stared for a long time before he realized that the man was the Crown Prince. As the Crown Prince in the past, he was high-spirited and well-groomed every day. He looked completely different from his current appearance of a disheveled prisoner. Song Qingshu didn't need to ask to know that the yellow-robed woman had purposely come to the palace to save the Crown Prince. However, she was discovered by the guards and was surrounded. It seemed that she had suffered serious injuries. As for the Crown Prince, his injuries were even more serious. He seemed to be on the verge of death. "Let's see where you can run to." A coquettish figure streaked across the sky, leaving behind a few afterimages, and directly blocked their way. Another petite figure also appeared behind them, sealing off their path of retreat. "You two old demons have disrupted the laws of the Great Song. First, you plotted to kill the Emperor, then the Crown Prince. Even if I die today, the righteous people of the Great Song will not let you off." The yellow-robed woman's almond-shaped eyes were wide open, and her tone was full of grief and indignation. The coquettish figure giggled. "I'm not from any prestigious sect, so I'm not afraid of being cursed for killing so many people. However, I have a clear conscience when it comes to dealing with your Zhao family's disciples." As she spoke, her originally smiling face suddenly turned ruthless. In the past, Zhao Kuangyin plotted to usurp the throne and plotted to kill the Guo clan and Fu clan's disciples. How are we going to settle this debt? This coquettish figure was Dan Yuru's master, Fu Yaohong. Song Qingshu didn't expect her to appear here so soon after they parted in Mongolia. Back then, the Fu family was the imperial family of the great Zhou emperor, so they naturally knew that Chai Rong should be called Guorong. The yellow-robed woman was immediately at a loss for words. However, she still said, "As a junior, I do not dare to judge what happened in the past. However, these years, the Song Kingdom has been prosperous and the people are at peace. The people are wealthy and have nurtured scholars for 100 years. It can be considered a prosperous dynasty. Let the people of the world judge. See whether they miss your Zhou Kingdom or prefer the Song Kingdom. Peace and prosperity." Fu Yaohong sneered. "How many years has it been since the humiliation of Jinkang? If I remember correctly, how many of your concubines and madams were taken as slaves by the Jeans? If even the royal family is in such a state, which of the common people isn't even more miserable?" The yellow-robed woman's face immediately turned red. This matter had always been a matter that she hated in her heart, and for a moment, she couldn't find any reason to refute. What's the point of talking so much with her? Let's just get rid of her. The petite figure on the other side snorted. Her mature and overbearing tone was completely different from her tender appearance. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao Song Qingshu thought back to the records he had seen in the secret room of Vulture Palace. For a moment, his expression was somewhat complicated. The Heavenly Mountain Tonglao before him was actually no longer the senior sister of that Wu Yizi and Li Qiushui. The real Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was already dead. She was just a little girl that the other party had found by chance and groomed to be the successor. Her memories, knowledge, martial arts, and even the way of thinking were now the same as the real Heavenly Mountain Tonglao. Even though he had lived 2 lives, it was difficult for him to figure out what to do. While he was lost in thought, the few of them had already exchanged blows. Although the yellow-robed woman's martial arts were high, Fu Yaohong and Heavenly Mountain Tonglao were both leaders of the underworld. They were almost at the first rank below the great grandmaster level. How could the yellow-robed woman block them? In almost an instant, she couldn't hold on and was injured repeatedly. Fu Yaohong snorted coldly. A hint of fierceness flashed in her eyes. While the yellow-robed woman was dealing with Heavenly Mountain Tonglao's Heavenly Mountain Plum-breaking hands, she stabbed her hands silently towards the back of the yellow-robed woman's heart. The bright red fingernails exuded a demonic glow. They were originally very beautiful fingers, but at this moment they were more dangerous than any dagger. If one was stabbed by them, even a few holes would be left in a stone, not to mention a body of flesh and blood. The yellow-robed woman naturally knew all this. She used 9 magic claws to fight against the enemy, but her hands were blocked by Heavenly Mountain Tonglao's plum-breaking hands. The opponent's plum-breaking hands were so exquisite that the yellow-robed woman couldn't move her hands at all. She could only watch Fu Yaohong's sharp fingers stabbing towards her back. My life is over. The yellow-robed woman had this thought. She didn't know why she was exceptionally calm at this moment. She had been too tired all these years. It was good to let go of everything like this. She didn't have to bear any more responsibilities or the mission of the academy. Her only regret was that she didn't see that person for the last time. He had a handsome face, but his smile was somewhat evil, which sometimes made people grit their teeth with hatred. Farewell, Brother Song, she murmured to herself. At this moment, she suddenly heard a teasing voice. Are you thinking of me? The pain she had imagined did not come. Instead, she fell into a warm embrace. The yellow-robed woman looked up at the familiar smile of the person in front of her. She couldn't help but feel dizzy. Song Qingshu held her in his arms. The gauze-like skirt didn't seem to exist. It didn't add any thickness to her slender waist. The yellow-robed woman finally came to her senses. She blushed and hurriedly pushed him away, struggling out of his arms. At this moment there were 2 soft sounds of surprise. Fu Yaohong and Heavenly Mountain Tonglao stopped their attacks at the same time. Fu Yaohong and Song Qingshu were friends in Mongolia, so she quickly put away the hostility in her eyes. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao snorted. Song Qingshu, every time I see you, you are always lying to girls. I didn't expect you to not change after so long. Looking at her pretending to be old and experienced, Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. Ever since he found out her real identity, he always found it interesting to see her. Why, are you jealous? The yellow-robed woman blushed. She thought that this guy was really a big pervert. He even dared to flirt with Heavenly Mountain Tonglao. Although she looked like a beautiful girl, she was old enough to be his grandmother. Fu Yaohong also widened her eyes. She had a strange expression on her face. She didn't expect him to be so cold. Did that mean she had a chance? She was from the Tianming sect and was good at seduction. She liked all kinds of handsome men. It was just that Song Qingshu was too powerful in the past, so she didn't dare to have such thoughts. Now that he was interested in Heavenly Mountain Tonglao, she realized that she was younger than him. However, when she thought about the ambiguous relationship between him and her disciple, she finally gave up the idea. She knew that he wouldn't like her. Heavenly Mountain Tonglau's face suddenly turned red. Song Qinshu, you even dared to flirt with me. Although she was angry, she couldn't help but think of the scene in the ice warehouse of the Xixia Imperial Palace when she was naked and stuffed into Li Qiushui's bed. For a moment, she was ashamed and annoyed. Looking at the angry face of the legal Lolita in front of him, Song Qinshu showed a knowing smile. Anyway, you are all famous seniors in the martial arts world. It's a bit unreasonable for you to join hands to deal with a junior. Chapter 2507. Then, Song Qinshu glanced at Heavenly Mountain Tonglao and said, especially you. People say that you don't need to make a second move to kill someone, but this time, you joined hands with others to deal with a junior. It's really embarrassing. Putting her hands behind her back, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao said like an elder, it's fine if it's someone else, but I don't have to follow the rules when dealing with the Zhao and Song royals. Otherwise, I would be ashamed to face my master. Only then did Song Qinshu remember that her master was Pan Lang, the unfettered one. He was the sixth son of Chai Rong, Chai Shijin, who was adopted by Pan Mei. The unfettered one spent his whole life planning to overthrow the Song dynasty and restore the great Zhou dynasty. After his death, he handed over his will to Heavenly Mountain Tonglao and the other disciples. However, they were trapped by love and wasted too many opportunities. Being raised by Pan Lang, they naturally didn't have any good feelings for the Zhao and Song royals. Success or failure is all in the past. I don't want to interfere with what happened in the past, but I want to take her away now. Is that okay? Song Qinshu pointed at the yellow-robed woman. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao frowned slightly and didn't speak. Fu Yaohong giggled and said, Prince Song is a kind man, and we have to give him face. Please help yourself. The yellow-robed woman said immediately, and the crown prince. At this moment, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao snorted and said, we can't let you take the crown prince away. What if I insist? Song Qinshu also wanted to ask about the details of the incident in Huzhou, but he felt that it was too ridiculous. There must be something hidden in it. Little Song, don't go too far. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao snorted and waved her hand, shooting several life-death notes at the crown prince. The life-death notes could make people beg for death, but they could also kill people instantly. Her life-death notes were aimed at the crown prince's Achilles heel, and once they hit the target, he would die instantly. Song Qinshu's body flashed, and he swept the life-death notes aside with his sleeves. Obviously, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao didn't expect to succeed with these life-death notes. She attacked Song Qinshu while he was saving the crown prince. Her small pink hands seemed to be waving very slowly, but they left afterimages in the air. With her wide sleeves, she looked like a fairy. Heavenly Mountain Plum Breaking Hand. Song Qinshu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The martial arts of the Xiaoyao sect were not only powerful but also beautiful. Xiaoyao Zi was really a dragon among men. Tian Shan Tonglao attacked him several times in a row, but he dodged all of her attacks easily. She knew that he was giving in to her on purpose. She could not help but feel annoyed. Why don't you fight back? In the past, when she was dealing with the island masters of the 36 Isles and the 72 Caves, she could basically take their lives with a single move. Now that she was dealing with a young junior like Song Qinshu, he had to intentionally go easy on her. This made her feel deeply humiliated. Song Qinshu smiled bitterly and said, with our relationship, I really don't want to fight. Who has anything to do with you? Tianshan Tongra shouted, and her attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Fu Yaohong might have admired Tianshan Tonglao's martial arts, but she knew that she alone would not be Song Qinshu's opponent. She laughed coquettishly and joined the fight. Prince Song, this concerns the fortune of the great Zhou dynasty. I have no choice but to offend you. Once she joined the fight, The pressure on Tianshan Tonglao lessened. Even Song Qingshu did not dare to be careless. Tianshan Tonglao could be said to be half a step away from being a grandmaster, and Fu Yaohong was not much weaker. If they worked together, he had to fight back. At that moment, Fu Yaohong's shock was far greater than his. Even though she knew that Song Qingshu was strong, she did not expect him to be so strong. If she worked together with Tianshan Tonglao, she was even confident that she could fight against Pang Ban. After all, both of them came from the Sacred Order. Pang Ban was the leader of Devil Face sect, and she could be considered as one of the best in Enweed faction. There might be a difference between them, but if Tianshan Tonglao joined the fight, they would definitely be able to make up for it. But right now, even if they used everything they had, it was difficult for them to injure Song Qingshu. In fact, she could clearly sense that he was still holding back. When she thought of this, she could not help but feel a little discouraged. It was truly frustrating to compare oneself to others. She had been gathering powerful fighters from all walks of life for decades and practiced the secret manuals of the Sacred Order, but she could not compare to such a young person. The only thing worth rejoicing about was that her disciple, Dan Yuru, had a good relationship with him. Strictly speaking, they were on the same side. Unlike Fu Yaohong's relaxed state of mind, Tianshan Tonglao was enraged at that moment. It had to be known that she was the eldest senior sister among the 3 carefree elders, and her martial arts were also higher than Li Qiushui and Wu Yizi's. She had always been prideful, but now she could not win against a young man even when she worked together with someone else. This made her, who always cared about her reputation, feel a little embarrassed. Song Qingshu groaned in his heart. As the saying went, one could offend anyone but a woman. Right now, Tianshan Tonglao was fighting with her life on the line. Sometimes, she would not even let go of her attacks and would attack him with all her might, which made him feel like his hands were tied. Big Brother Song, the Crown Prince is about to die. At that moment, the yellow-robed woman by the side cried out in surprise. She had gone to check on the Crown Prince just now and found that his injuries were so severe that it was difficult to heal him. He was already on the verge of death. Song Qingshu was shocked. He immediately attacked and forced the 2 women to retreat. He moved in a flash and arrived next to the Crown Prince. When he saw that the Crown Prince's face was as pale as a sheet, he breathed in less than he breathed out. He hurriedly channeled his inner force into the Crown Prince and asked, "What is going on in Hu Province?" When the Crown Prince opened his eyes and saw that it was him, he revealed a surprised and complicated expression. His lips moved, but he did not say anything for a long time. Song Qingshu frowned and channeled another inner force into the Crown Prince. It was only then that the Crown Prince came back to his senses and said, "I didn't think that I would have to rely on you to save the Song dynasty in the end. You have to be careful of Zhao." "Zhao." He stammered out a few words, then stretched out his legs and breathed his last. "Crown Prince." The yellow-robed woman looked sad. She did not have any feelings for the Crown Prince, but he was the legitimate heir of the Song dynasty after all. Now that Zhao Go had died in the coup, the Crown Prince was dead, and Prince Yi of Mount Wudong was also dead. There were not many capable people left in the royal family. Song Qingshu, however, frowned. Why did this fellow make it seem like he was acting in a television drama? He did not say the most important information, but said some unimportant things first. Who exactly did he want me to be careful of? Ba. At this moment, a peaceful Buddha's name sounded. The voice seemed to be full of compassion, which made people subconsciously feel deep respect. Even without seeing it, they knew that it was an eminent monk. Song Qingshu looked at the white-browed old monk who was slowly walking over and could not help but feel a chill in his heart. "I was wondering how they could change dynasties so easily. Seeing that you are here, everything makes sense. After leaving Mount Wudong, Almsgiver Song is even more elegant than before. It is really admirable," the white-browed monk said with emotion. Song Qingshu smiled slightly and said, When you were seriously injured on Mount Wudong, everyone thought that you would not live for long. I did not expect that you not only survived, but also recovered your martial arts to the peak. This is admirable." The old monk in front of him was naturally the sweeping monk. When he was sneakily attacked by Jia Sherdao on Mount Wudong, he was hit in the back by a great grandmaster's punch. But now he looked like he was fine, which was really surprising. The sweeping monk sighed and said, "I am indebted to the protection of the ancestors. The I Jin Jing and the North Underworld divine skill are both broad and profound, so I was lucky to be alive." Song Qingshu secretly sighed. The I Jin Jing was the highest martial arts classic of the Buddhism, and the North Underworld divine skill was the best secret of the Shaoyao sect. The sweeping monk had mastered both Buddhism and Taoism, so he was really unfathomable. At the same time, he also remembered the question on Mount Wudong. At that time, he felt that the injury of the sweeping monk was not as serious as he thought, but he did not think about it and thought it was his illusion. Song Qingshu suddenly thought of something and looked in 3 directions. "Since the 3 divine monks are here, why don't you show up together?" Ba. 3 Buddha's names sounded, and 3 old monks appeared in 3 directions. One of them had a yellow face and 1 eye, one had a pale face, and the last one was as black as charcoal. Each of them had a long black rope in their hand. They were none other than the 3 divine monks Du Er, Du Jie, and Du Nan who had rendered Zhang Wuji helpless at the lion-slaying convention. "King Kong Demon Subduing Ring?" Song Qingshu said in a deep voice, "It seems that you want to keep me here." The sweeping monk said in a deep voice, "Donor Song, I have always admired your noble ambition. If it were any other time, I would definitely invite you to have tea and talk. However, this matter involves the hatred of the country and family. Donor Song's status is special, and your martial arts are too high. I am not sure if I can win. Forgive us for not being moral in Jianghu." Chapter 2508. The yellow-robed woman, who had been immersed in her sorrow, became angry when she heard this. She scolded, "All of you are old enough to be Brother Song's grandfather, but you want to join forces to deal with a junior. Don't you have any shame?" Song Qingshu touched his nose. He knew that the yellow-robed woman was worried about him, but why did it sound like he was being taken advantage of? Heaven Mountain Tonglau's face heated up. With her pride, it was already very embarrassing for her to join forces with Fu Yaohong to deal with Song Qingshu. Now, she had to join forces with more people, one of whom was a great grandmaster of the same level. She could not bring herself to do it. Fu Yaohong had a faint smile on her face. She came from a demonic cult, so it was common for her to be bullied by others. She didn't feel any psychological burden. However, she had personally seen Song Qingshu fight against 3 great grandmasters from Linqing and still survive. She wasn't sure if they were enough to deal with him. Furthermore, they had some friendly relations with Linqing. Was there a need to completely fall out with him? The calmest person present was Sandu at the lion-slaying gathering. The 3 of them had joined forces to deal with Zhang Wuji with the Vajra Demon Subduing Ring. This had happened once, so it would be much easier to do it again. Ba. The monk's eyes were full of guilt. "Benefactor, you are right." He then looked at Song Qingshu. "Benefactor Song, you must know the grudge between the Guo family and the Zhao family. The Zhao family wronged us first. If you are willing to help us, I can guarantee that all of your official positions and treatment in the Song court will be the same. In fact, it will only be better than before. Even the Zhao family's princesses and members of the royal family will be at your disposal. We are old and do not have many years left to live. Only you can truly help Jing. If you join forces, the state of Zhou will definitely restore the Central Plains and unify the world. You will fulfill Emperor Ruiwu's great wish." Seeing that he was openly trying to rope in Song Qingshu, the yellow-robed woman immediately became anxious. "Big monk, you are shameless. You are a Buddhist, but you are using the Zhao family's women as a condition. Thinking of Song Qingshu's personality, she was really afraid that he would agree immediately. Miss, you misunderstood. The sweeping monk chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. I don't want to kill too much, but I can't not take revenge for what happened in the past. After thinking about it, only when the Zhao family is in Benefactor Song's hands can both of us feel at ease. Hearing the other party's various conditions, Song Qingshu sank into deep thought. The other party had already spoken quite sincerely, and if it was someone else, they might really be tempted. However, Song Qingshu now held great power in his hands, so there was no need for him to be below others. Seeing that he was silent, the girl in yellow thought that he was really moved. She hurriedly said, Brother Song, are you really thinking about it? Let's not talk about cooking the hound after the hare is killed. Just talking about the thing between you and Madame Guo, they won't tolerate you. Which emperor will tolerate his empress having an affair with an official? As soon as these words came out, the expressions of everyone present became extremely interesting. This matter had been widely spread in Linnan, but after all, there was no real evidence. Both sides were also deliberately avoiding this topic, but in the end it was suddenly brought up by her. Noticing that other people were looking at him with strange gazes, even though Song Qingshu was extremely thick-skinned, he was now flustered. Ing Luo, this girl, was also confused because of her concern. How could she say such words in public? After a long time, it was Fu Yaohong who broke the silence. If Prince Song is worried about this matter, you don't have to worry. As long as Prince Song agrees, we can let Jing and Chief Huang separate. After that, whoever Huang Rong likes and wants to follow, it's all up to her resources. We won't interfere. What does young master think? Song Qingshu looked surprised. You can make decisions for such a thing? Fu Yaohong nodded. Although the love between husband and wife is rare, it's nothing compared to national hatred and family hatred. In the past 100 years, whether it's our Fu family or the 5th prince, the 6th prince or the 7th prince, everyone has made great sacrifices in order to restore the country. Jing can certainly understand. Big monk, don't you think so? Seeing that she was looking at him, the sweeping monk also said in a deep voice, Yes, I can also guarantee this matter. With Jing character, he won't have any objections. After saying this, he sighed in his heart. These years of quiet cultivation in Buddhism could be said to have been destroyed in a day. But as long as he could complete the family's mission, it was worth it even if he went to hell in the future. Thinking of his father's eager eyes looking at him before he died in order to restore the great Zhou dynasty, the sweeping monk's eyes gradually became firm. The yellow-robed woman was stunned. The descendants of the Guo family were really willing to sacrifice their capital. She had seen Huang Rong's beauty and charm with her own eyes. She was worried that Song Qingshu would really bow down for her beauty, so she hurriedly said, Brother Song, who and Yun are in love with you. They don't hesitate to risk the world to imitate the story of Empress Yi and Nuying as princesses. You can't let them down. Heaven Mountain Tonglao snorted. To put it nicely, they are princesses. To put it bluntly, they are just slaves of the Jin Kingdom's laundry yard. Besides, it's not so great for two sisters to share a husband. My 4 maids, Plum, Orchid, Bamboo, and Chrysanthemum, are 4 sisters of the same mother. Their charm added together is more attractive to men than your 2 younger sisters. Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. I don't dare to accept that. You were the one who gave them to me, but in the end, you turned against me. I don't want to go through that again. Heaven Mountain Tonglao blushed. Don't blame them. I forced them to listen to my orders. I saved their lives. I raised them and taught them martial arts since they were young. They don't dare to disobey me. They have been very sad during this time. If you still think it's not enough, I can let my last disciple give herself to you as well. You have seen Fu Mini before. No matter her appearance or figure, she is the best in the Vulture Palace. Besides, she used to move around in the martial arts world of Jiangnan as the White Lotus Saintess. Countless men fell in love with her. In addition, she comes from the royal family of the Zhou dynasty. Her status is not lower than that of any princess or princess. How about it? Am I generous enough? Song Qingshu smiled and did not answer her. Instead, he turned to the yellow-robed woman and said, "You heard them. They have offered me such a good deal. Do you have any conditions? Tell me quickly before it's too late." The yellow-robed woman almost fainted from anger. However, this was a matter of national enmity. She did not care about anything else. She took a deep breath and said, "If you think Hu and Yuan are not enough, you can choose any of the other princesses and princesses of the Song dynasty." Song Qingshu was instantly amused. He did not expect such a funny scene to happen. It seemed that his reputation was not very good. They thought that he was the kind of person who valued beauty. "Do you include yourself among the princesses you mentioned?" Song Qingshu looked at her with a playful expression. The yellow-robed woman's pale face instantly turned bright red. Her body trembled for a while before she bit her lip and said, "Of course!" "Okay." Song Qingshu smiled. Then, he said to Heaven Mountain Tonglao, "Although I am a lustful person, I pay attention to mutual affection. I don't like to use feelings to make a deal. I will have to disappoint your kindness." Heaven Mountain Tonglao snorted coldly. "Isn't it a deal between you and her? It's not the same." Song Qingshu walked over and held the yellow-robed woman's hand. "She and I have a foundation of feelings. This can only be considered as a result of our relationship." The yellow-robed woman, who had always been stubborn, originally felt that it was a bit humiliating to agree under that kind of situation. However, for the country and for the clan, she had to agree. When she heard what he said, her slightly trembling body instantly calmed down. Her cold little hands subconsciously held the other party tightly. Why doesn't anyone use this kind of multiple-choice question to test me in reality? Chapter 2509. Are you playing a trick on us? For some reason, Tianshan Tonglao felt a surge of anger from the bottom of her heart. Song Qingshu sighed. "We're all old acquaintances, so I'll tell you something from the bottom of my heart. Although I personally sympathize with the Guo family during the Chenqié mutiny, the winner takes all. Now that the Song dynasty has lasted for 100 years, and although it's weak in external wars, it's still considered peaceful and prosperous. Especially the preferential treatment of scholar officials. I don't know how many unyielding scholars have been raised. If I were to be with you, I would definitely be condemned by thousands of people and go down in history as a stink. So, I'm sorry to refuse your kind offer." "That's right." The monk looked melancholy and said, "We also know that the Song court is very popular. However, we have to do it even if we know it is impossible. Almsgiver Song's unwillingness to work with us is also expected." Song Qingshu bowed to him and said, "Thank you for your understanding, elder." The monk returned the bow and said, "However, we have to get rid of them. Almsgiver Song, please forgive us." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Song Qingshu. His palm was like a gentle breeze, yet it also seemed soft and powerless, fluttering in the air. It was unknown where Song Qingshu's body was. Tianshan Tonglao's expression changed greatly. Back then, Master Xiaoyao Zi accepted 3 disciples, and the 3 of them were almost equal in talent. However, Li Qiushui was obsessed with love, Weia Zi had a wide range of hobbies, and only she was dedicated to martial arts. So, in the end, her martial arts was the best, and she was quite proud of it. However, she did not expect that the cultivation of her master's missing son had already far surpassed her. Not only was he proficient in the martial arts of the Xiaoyao sect, but he had also integrated various divine skills of Shaolin. Her Tianshan plum-breaking hand was the most profound and wonderful martial arts of the Xiaoyao sect. There was no end to practicing it, and it could integrate all the martial arts in the world into its move. To some extent, it was very similar to the concept of the 9 strategies beyond the swords. When the Tianshan plum-breaking hand was practiced to the highest level, it could break all the martial arts in the world. But this time, when the sweeping monk made his move, she couldn't see what kind of move he had used. It seemed that in 1 second it had the shadow of the Xiaoyao sect, and in the next moment, it seemed more like the Shaolin 72 ultimate skills. But when she thought about it carefully, she found that it was neither. She suddenly understood that the opponent had long since jumped out of the rut of his moves, and every time he attacked, it was like an antelope hanging its horn, leaving no traces behind. The funny thing was that she had always been complacent about the Tianshan plum-breaking hand and thought that it could break all the martial arts in the world. But now that she saw it with her own eyes, she realized that if the sweeping monk's palm was aimed at her, could she dodge it? Initially, Heaven Mountain Tonglao thought that she was only half a step away from being a great grandmaster. However, when the other party attacked, she realized that this half-step was like a mote. Apart from being shocked, she was also very curious. How would Song Qingshu be able to dodge this move? Seeing that the sweeping monk's palm was as light as a feather, Song Qingshu didn't dare to be careless. Although this move seemed simple, it was an extremely powerful killer move. Murong Bo and Xiao Yuanshan were powerful enough, but even with their full concentration on defense, they were still killed by this move. Last time on Mount Wudong, even a great grandmaster was killed by this move. The opponent had used his ultimate move from the beginning, obviously intending to end the battle quickly. Big Brother Song, quickly dodge! The girl in yellow was Huang Shang's last disciple. Under his careful training, she had already reached the great grandmaster realm at a young age. She naturally also knew the power of this move. Back on Mount Wudong, her master had been seriously injured by this move. Dodge! A faint smile hung on the corner of Song Qingshu's mouth. Temujin had been killed, and Ah Qing had fallen asleep. What else was there in the world for him to hide from? At this time, the sweeping monk felt a little strange. Just now, he noticed that the other party's breathing was a little sluggish when he spoke. If he wasn't mistaken, the other party was injured. Just now, while giving all kinds of conditions, he was also looking for an opportunity to attack. Just a moment ago, he found that opportunity. This move of his was called One Slap Two Scatters, and it condensed the essence of his martial arts. To a certain extent, it could be regarded as a kind of rule. As long as he found an opportunity to attack, he would definitely hit, and once he hit, he would instantly kill an enemy, no matter how high the opponent's martial arts were. Even a great grandmaster was no exception. Although Murong Bo and Xiao Yuanshan's martial arts were high, this was a level that they couldn't understand at all. They thought that their defense was impregnable, but in front of this move it was full of holes. After decades of painstakingly training in the Sutra Pavilion of the Shaolin Temple, he had thoroughly mastered the martial arts of the Xiao Yao sect and the Shaolin Temple. He was confident that in a one-on-one fight, besides the unfathomable Zhang Sanfeng, no one in the world could be his opponent. However, Song Qingshu was an anomaly. Originally, when it came to martial arts, he thought that he was better than his opponent, but after seeing the golden light in his opponent's eyes, he felt a huge sense of crisis, which made all the hairs on his body stand up. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless, and gathered the others to attack his opponent together. At this level, he could more or less guess that although Song Qingshu's hidden move was strong, it should be used to deal with a single person, and not a group attack. Therefore, if the opponent used that move, Fu Yaohong and the others, who were at the side, could easily take his life. This matter was related to the 100 years of grudges between the Guo and Zhao families, so he couldn't care less. However, there was a faint sense of unease in his heart, because the opponent was too calm, and didn't have the slightest intention of dodging. Suddenly, Song Qingshu, who was right in front of him, seemed to have disappeared. He was clearly standing there, but his aura seemed to have disappeared into thin air. What replaced it was an incomparably sharp sword chi. His whole body was like a peerless sword standing there, and when the palm of the monk was about to hit him, the sword chi suddenly bloomed, and a giant sword that went straight to the sky was formed, and then it came straight down. The monk's pupils shrank, and the light palm directly hit the void sword. He hit it 7 times in a row, and his whole body also took 7 steps back. It should be known that his one-hit 2 scatter could kill a peerless master in the world in a second. He rarely used it, but now he had used it 7 times, and his face flashed an abnormal dark red. The sweeping monk stood silently where he was. Just a moment ago, he was in front of Song Qingshu, but now he was dozens of feet away from him. There was a huge sword mark on the stone pavement between the two of them. It should have been caused by that shocking sword chi just now. Everyone in the field stared with wide eyes. In that instant, the sword chi scattered everywhere, and the palm power splashed everywhere. Even with the cultivation of Tianshan Tonglao and Fu Yaohong, they couldn't stand still, and subconsciously took a few feet back. Is this the power of a great grandmaster? Everyone was shocked. The shocking sword just now had been deeply imprinted in everyone's mind, and they would probably not be able to forget it for the rest of their lives. At the same time, the monk had hit the ground 7 times in a row, and when he retreated, it was like a mirage. Perhaps even Li Qiushui, who had been immersed in the wave-like micro-steps for decades, would feel inferior. Tianshan Tonglao's heart moved. The scene just now seemed to make her understand something, but in the next second she forgot it. She knew that it was best for her to immediately find a secluded place to study it. Maybe in a few years she would be able to smoothly step into the great grandmaster realm. Fu Yaohong was very happy. Fortunately, her good disciple had a good relationship with him, otherwise she really wouldn't dare to go against such a guy. The yellow-robed woman's beautiful eyes were full of light. She had been adopted by Huang Chang since she was a child, and carefully taught. Looking at the whole world, she was probably the person who had spent the longest time with a great grandmaster. In that instant, she had a feeling that Song Qingshu seemed to be stronger than the last time in the Wu-Tang Dang sect, and he was even more unfathomable than her master felt. While everyone had their own thoughts, the 3 long black ropes had already swept towards Song Qingshu. Chapter 25:10. It turned out that Sandu saw the two of them exchange blows. Although he couldn't tell who had the upper hand, he guessed that they had consumed about the same amount of energy. At this time, the old strength had been used up and the new strength had not yet recovered, so they keenly grasped this momentary gap. Of course, they didn't think that they could defeat a great grandmaster. But they gave the sweeping monk enough time to rest, while Song Qingshu didn't have time to recover. Under this situation, the scales of victory would gradually tilt in their favor. The 3 long ropes were completely black and no light could be seen when they moved. These 3 long ropes seemed slow, but they were actually fast, without the slightest sound of wind. Obviously, their internal energy had reached the state of perfection. Du Yi's black rope turned into a straight blade, like a spear or a stick, stabbing forward. At the same time, the 2 black ropes in Du Jie and Du Nan's hands wrapped around him from behind, trying to entangle him for a moment. "Brother Song, be careful." The yellow-robed woman also waved her long whip, using the white python whip technique to coil around 2 of the black ropes, at least to help relieve some of the pressure. Fu Yaohong's figure flashed and blocked her long whip. Tianshan Tonglao hesitated for a moment, but didn't move. Song Qingshu, who was in the center of the Vajra subduing evil circle, waved his left hand and used a skillful force to entangle Du Jie and Du Nan's long whips together, counteracting each other's attacks. Du Jie and Du Nan were shocked. They had been immersed in the Vajra subduing evil circle for decades. The former sect leader of the Kunlun sect died here, and even the former cult leader of the devil cult, Zhang Wuji, was trapped inside and unable to escape. They didn't expect that their opponent could so easily neutralize their attack. But what made their eyes widen was another thing. They saw Song Qingshu slowly stretch out the fingers of his right hand and gently clamp down on Du Yi's black rope, which was powerful enough to break a stone tablet. Du Yi, on the other hand, was not surprised but happy. With a flick of his wrist, an earth-shattering internal energy hit Song Qingshu's chest. Long whips had a great advantage, which was that they could multiply your internal energy. The closer to the end of the whip, the stronger the power you could wield. As a great grandmaster, the other party's cultivation was higher than his, but if his inner force was magnified by 10 times, would the other party still be stronger than him? He had actually been so arrogant as to directly clamp the tip of his whip with his hand. If it had been any other expert, Du Yi was confident that he could even break their ribs and crush their internal organs. The other party was a great grandmaster, so he definitely wouldn't do that. However, breaking the bones of his fingers shouldn't be a problem. At this moment, the sweeping monk hurriedly warned, "Be careful!" Du Yi stared blankly. He didn't understand why the monk would warn Song Qingshu to be careful. Could it be that he cherished talent? But now that the two of them were standing on opposite sides, soft-heartedness would not do. At this moment, Song Qingshu snorted coldly. With a flick of his wrist that was gripping the whip, an even bigger wave followed the black rope and attacked Du Yi. The wave that Du Yi's wrist had conjured was like ice and snow meeting a volcano. It melted in an instant. In his shock, he wanted to let go of the whip, but it was already too late. An incomparably terrifying inner force directly smashed into his chest, causing Du Yi to spit out a mouthful of blood. In that instant, he knew that 7 or 8 of his ribs had been broken, and his internal organs had suffered serious injuries. Senior Martial Brother Du Nan, Du Jie, and Du Yi had been meditating in the Shaolin Temple's back mountain for decades. In order to practice the Vajra subduing devil circle, they had practiced to the point where their hearts and minds were interlinked. Even blood brothers could not compare to the feelings between them. Seeing Du Yi in such a miserable state, the two of them were shocked and angry. With a flick of their wrists, they untied the black ropes that were wrapped around them. One of them aimed at Song Qingshu's spine, and the other at his waist. Song Qingshu's face turned cold. In an instant, countless sword qi condensed in the air, and the 2 impressive black ropes were instantly cut into several pieces. The rest of the sword qi continued to shoot towards the 2 men's right hands. The Vajra subduing devil circle was called the subduing devil circle, but the 3 of them had unknowingly entered the devil's path. At the lion-slaying gathering, countless masters from other sects had died under their black ropes. Even the head of the Kunlun sect had been beaten to death by them. Their attacks were extremely ruthless, without the slightest mercy of a Buddhist monk. Just now, whether it was the spine or the waist, a normal person would be lucky enough to survive, but the lower half of their body would be paralyzed. Therefore, Du Jie did not show any mercy. Du Nan's cultivation was originally lower than Du Yi's. In the face of the fierce sword qi, they could not react at all. Before the sword qi reached their bodies, they already felt a faint tingling sensation on their skin. There was only one thought left in their minds: my life is over. At this moment, a gray shadow blocked in front of the 2 of them. His hands formed an invisible qi that melted the sword qi. However, his body still shook, and his face became paler than before. Song Qingshu did not attack again. Instead, he looked at the gray shadow with a somewhat complicated expression. Originally, your injury would have recovered in a few days. If you force yourself to attack now, I'm afraid you won't be able to recover in a short time. Ahmed Ba, the sweeping monk sighed. After all, I brought them out of Shaolin Temple. I can't watch them die in a foreign land. Song Qingshu said lightly, you should also know the situation just now. I have been merciful. On the contrary, their moves are getting more and more ruthless. Therefore, I plan to cripple one of their hands so that they can meditate and worship Buddha. Thank you, benefactor, for being merciful. The sweeping monk nodded. If you hadn't been merciful, I'm afraid you would have died on the spot. Hearing the conversation between the two, the surrounding people were shocked. Du Nan was even more ashamed. It turned out that the other side had been merciful from the beginning. However, what was even more shocking was another thing. Just now, the sweeping monk and Song Qinshu had exchanged one move. Listening to their words, the sweeping monk had been defeated in one move. How was this possible? The strength of the sweeping monk was well known. He was recognized in Jianghu as a figure on par with Wudong Zhenrenzhang. No matter how powerful Song Qinshu was, it was in line with everyone's understanding that he was at most on par with him. Even if Song Qinshu had suddenly risen in recent years and become a great grandmaster, no matter how powerful he was only a little better than the sweeping monk. They were both great grandmasters, so how could the winner be decided so quickly? This was a question that both Song Qinshu and the sweeping monk knew. If they had fought normally, it would not have been so easy to decide the winner. However, just now, the sweeping monk had sensed that his opponent was injured, so he wanted to end the battle quickly. As soon as they met, both sides had used their unique skills to fight. However, he had not expected that Song Qinshu's sword chi would be so powerful. In a head-on clash, he had suffered quite a bit. Later on, in order to save Du Nan, his injuries had worsened. At this time, the yellow-robed woman had already given up fighting Fu Yao. Compared to Fu Yaohong's disappointment, she was now looking at the figure with a face full of excitement. Which girl in the world did not want their lover to be an invincible hero? Heaven Mountain Tonglao had a complicated expression. She thought to herself that this guy had improved very quickly. The last time they had separated, he was clearly not this powerful. How did he do it? She could not help but want to ask him. At this time, the sweeping monk was injured, and San Du could no longer fight. Only Fu Yaohong and Heaven Mountain Tonglao were left. However, both of them had some friendship with Song Qinshu. For a moment, both sides were silent. Take her away. It was still Heaven Mountain Tonglao who spoke first. She knew that her group could not stop the other party, so she might as well do him a favor. In any case, the crown prince was already dead. A mere yellow-robed woman would not affect the overall situation. However, Song Qinshu shook his head. This time, I came to the palace mainly to see Brother Guo. I have some questions to ask him. Fu Yaohong's brows furrowed. Prince Song, although your martial arts are high, with all of us swarming together and the experts in the palace, you may not be able to win. The restoration of the great Zhou dynasty had been the hard work of several generations. Now that they had finally allowed Emperor Ruiwu's descendant to ascend to the throne, they could not let anyone ruin it, no matter how strong he was. Hearing her words, the guards and soldiers nearby all drew their swords from their waists and drew their longbows. The situation could be triggered at any moment. At this time, Guojing's voice came from deep within the palace. "Aunt, let him in." Chapter 25:11. The Guo family was the royal family of the Zhou dynasty, and the Fu family was the imperial family of the Zhou dynasty. According to seniority, Fu Yaohong was Guojing's aunt. Hearing Guojing's voice, Fu Yaohong hesitated. Although Guojing's kung fu was good, Song Qinshu's cultivation level was too high. It would be dangerous for them to meet alone. The sweeping monk said, "Don't worry. With almsgiver Song's character and his friendship with Jing he won't do anything bad to him." Fu Yaohong thought about their relationship with the Mongols and suddenly felt relieved. I was being too narrow-minded. Prince Song, please. Song Qinshu held the yellow-shirted woman's hand. Come with me. He wasn't afraid that Tianshan Tonglao and the others would attack her if she stayed here, but he was worried that she would leave. They had worked so hard to get closer, and it would be a pity if they parted so soon. Feeling the warmth of his hand, the yellow-shirted woman's heart warmed. However, her eyes fell on the crown prince's body, and she looked hesitant. Fu Yaohong said, "Don't worry. The crown prince is dead. No matter how big the grudge between us is, we won't destroy his body. I'll send someone to bury him later." The yellow-shirt woman was relieved. She wanted to express her gratitude, but when she remembered that the crown prince was killed by them, she couldn't bring herself to say thank you. Song Qinshu patted her hand to comfort her, and then led her deeper into the palace. Because of Guo Jing's orders, the journey was smooth. Outside the imperial study, Song Qinshu said to the yellow-shirt woman, "Wait here for me. I have something to say to Guo Jing." After all, they had a national grudge, and it wouldn't be good if there was a conflict inside. The yellow-shirt woman nodded, and she was as obedient as a young wife. Song Qinshu looked at her in surprise. He couldn't help but ask, "You didn't run away, did you?" The yellow-shirt woman rolled her eyes at him. "Don't worry, I'll wait for you." He couldn't help but think of the scene where he defeated the sweeping monk and the others. He was really handsome. After receiving confirmation, Song Qinshu walked into the imperial study. A burly figure was standing by the window, staring blankly at the moon in the sky. When he heard Song Qinshu enter, he turned around and looked at Song Qinshu with a complicated expression. "Brother Song, I didn't expect to see you again in such a situation after we parted ways in Mongolia." Song Qinshu looked at Guo Jing, who was dressed in a dragon robe. For a moment, he was not used to this style. He could not help but sigh. "Yes, no matter how wild my imagination was, I never expected you to become the emperor." Guo Jing smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect it either. After coming back from Mongolia, I learned too many things that I didn't know before. I don't know how to deal with it." Song Qinshu suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He thought of the rumors about the affair between him and Huang Rong. Obviously, he also knew about it. He wanted to explain, but he didn't know how to start. "I didn't expect that I was actually a descendant of the Zhou dynasty's royal family. In the past few decades, countless people from the Guo clan and the Fu clan have worked hard to restore the Zhou dynasty and take revenge on the Zhao Song dynasty. Countless people have spent their entire lives, some even sacrificing their lives." Guo Jing looked at his hands. "But I've always been protecting this country that my enemy built. Because of this, my mother lost her life." Song Qinshu said in a low voice, "Brother Guo, everything you did was for the country and the people, not for the Zhao family's imperial court, so you don't have to blame yourself." "Thank you for enlightening me, Brother Song." Guo Jing forced a smile. "Actually, I told myself the same thing, but I also know that if I had known about my past, I probably wouldn't have made such a choice. Back then, I thought I was from the Song dynasty. I didn't expect that I was actually from the Zhou dynasty." Song Qinshu was silent. This was the helplessness of fate. Many times it didn't depend on human strength. He hesitated and asked, "Actually, even if you knew about your past, with your personality, you aren't the type to be greedy for power. Why did you rebel with them and become the emperor?" "Rebel? In your eyes, this is rebellion?" Guo Jing laughed self-deprecatingly. "I'm just taking back what the Zhao family shamelessly took from us." Song Qinshu couldn't help but say, "It seems that Fu Yaohong and the others have had a great influence on you these days." Guo Jing shook his head. "They did instill a lot of hatred for the Zhao Song dynasty in me, but I won't change so easily. After all, I'm no longer that naive and foolish boy from back then." "Then why?" Song Qinshu was slightly puzzled. From his tone, he didn't detect the hatred for the Zhao Song dynasty that Fu Yaohong, Fu Mini and the others had. Why would he join the rebellion? "As I said earlier, I learned many things in these days." Guo Jing looked deeply at him and continued, "Other than the fact that I am a member of the Zhou dynasty's royal family, the other thing is that I failed to become the palace marshal. Song Qinshu recalled that when he was in Linen, because of Guo Jing's meritorious service in defending Xiangyang and his high prestige, there was a great clamor for him to be appointed as the commander of the Front Palace Department, responsible for protecting the imperial family and cooperating with Han Xingzhou on the northern expedition. But later, the matter ended without any progress. Everyone was guessing the reason. So the Zhao Song Emperor already knew the truth of my past. So how would they dare to give me such an important appointment? Guo Jing laughed self-deprecatingly. Back then, Rong-er disappeared for no reason. It was a trap they set to prevent me from participating in the front contest. Song Qinshu suddenly understood. Back then, he knew that Huang Rong had been captured. At the time, he had been curious about the reason. Now he finally understood everything. But Brother Guo, you don't look like someone who is greedy for power. You don't have to choose to rebel because of this? Guo Jing sighed. I really don't care for the position of palace marshal. But this time, someone showed me many secret documents. Only then did I know that Zhao Guo had secretly planned to get rid of me. Back in the northern expedition, I was purposely set up by them to go deep into enemy territory alone. They wanted to use the gene to kill me. Thanks to your help, I was lucky enough to keep my life. Song Qinshu sighed. Back then, Guo Jing had risked his life for the Song dynasty. During the northern expedition, he was tacitly abandoned by the other armies. In the end, he was surrounded by the Jin army. He had personally experienced this. How could he not know? Other than that, Zhao Guo also designed a few other backup plans. He wanted to get rid of me secretly. He even planned to kill Rong-er, Fu-er, and the others. Guo Jing smiled sadly. Back then, the Zhao family took advantage of the Ruiwu emperor's death to bully the orphans and widows of the Zhou dynasty. I didn't expect that 100 years later they would kill us all. A man is born in this world. If he can't protect his wife and daughter, and can't comfort his ancestors, then what's the point of living? Song Qinshu fell silent. The other party was right. In the end, it was the Zhao family who had wronged the Guo family. But between countries there was no right or wrong. Of course, he also knew that if he was in Song Qinshu's shoes, he would most likely make the same choice. But Guo Jing was a person of noble character. Even if Zhao Song had wronged him, he would not have such a strong reaction. Come to think of it, whether it was Fu Yaohong or the sweeping monk, they all had a great impact on him. In addition, the various things during the northern expedition, and the experience in Mongolia, where he had no choice but to separate from Huajing, must have affected his worldview to a certain extent. All these factors together led to the current situation. Now that they were so close to each other, he could still feel Guo Jing's innocent heart. However, it would be unrealistic to say that Guo Jing had not changed at all. The Guo Jing now was no longer the hero of Xiangyang that he used to be. Song Qinshu could not help but ask, this time, Fu Yaohong and the others helped you. Obviously, they also borrowed the power of the Mongolians. In the future, will you return the favor to the Mongolians? Guo Jing shook his head. Although I no longer consider myself a Song person, I am still a Han. I have seen the Mongolians burn, kill, and loot with my own eyes. How can I betray the interests of my country for my own selfish desires? Back then, Emperor Ruiwu was the pride of his generation. Unfortunately, the heavens did not give him a break. Otherwise, he would have already unified the world. Later, Zhao and Song would not have been weak, and the people of the Central Plains would not have been bullied by the foreign tribes. As a descendant of Emperor Ruiwu, I have the responsibility to carry on his unfinished legacy. Hearing this, Song Qinshu was secretly impressed. Brother Guo, you are so bold. Guo Jing sighed. But now I may not be able to hold on to the throne, let alone conquer the Central Plains. Song Qinshu did not say anything against his heart. Indeed, he may not be able to hold on to the throne. Not to mention himself, many other powers may not be able to accept him. It was just that everyone was still watching and had not made a move. After all, the Zhou dynasty had been destroyed for more than 100 years. How could it still rally people? Guojing suddenly changed the topic. The last time I left Mongolia, I was in a hurry. How is Huajing? Song Qinshu nodded. Princess Huajing is fine, but she is under house arrest in the palace. She cannot see you, so she can only wash her face with tears. Guojing's face revealed a pained expression. I have let her down. I ruined the first half of her life, and I did not expect that I would ruin the second half of her life. Song Qinshu comforted him. This is not your fault. When you lost your memory in Mongolia, you may feel sorry for her. But in her eyes, the time she spent with you was probably the happiest time of her life. Hearing this, Guojing could not help but be moved. Obviously, he was reminded of the time when he lost his memory with Huajing. It was indeed a rare carefree time. It could be said that he had never been so happy. After a long time, Guojing suddenly said, Brother Song, I would like to ask you for a favor. Brother Guo, please say it. As long as it is within my power, I will do it without hesitation. Song Qinshu said seriously. Guojing looked at him with a complicated expression. After a while, he said, If anything happens to me, I will trouble you to take care of Ronger. This. Song Qinshu suddenly felt very embarrassed. He had never thought that Guojing would say this. He did not know whether Guojing was testing him on purpose or was sincere. For a moment, he did not know how to respond. Guojing did not say anything more. Instead, he changed the topic. Well, I am a little tired. Brother Song, please go back. Until they came out of the palace, Song Qinshu still did not come back to his senses. He did not know what Guojing meant. What did you say to Guojing? The yellow-robed woman was a little curious and could not help but ask. Chapter 25:12. We talked about the past, but not much else. Song Qinshu briefly recounted the conversation in the imperial study. Of course, he left out the matter of Huang Rong. The yellow-shirted woman couldn't help but sigh. I admire Hirogua's character. Unfortunately, fate makes fools of people. Yes. Song Qinshu also sighed. At this moment, Guojing was just like Xiao Feng in the original novel. He had fallen into a dilemma arranged by fate. No matter what he chose, he would only receive pain. Therefore, in the original novel, Xiao Feng could only commit suicide. The fates of the other male protagonists were much better. Ling Huchong didn't have to worry about killing his master for revenge because Yi Lin helped him. Duan Yu didn't have to worry about ethics and love because his mother cheated, so he didn't have to face a dilemma. Thinking of this, Song Qinshu couldn't help but feel lucky that he didn't have to face such a choice. But with his uninhibited personality, even if he was in Guojing's position, he probably wouldn't be so conflicted. Right, Guojing has already promised to bury the crown prince's body in the royal garden. You don't have to worry too much. Song Qinshu comforted her. The yellow-shirted woman grunted, Thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have made it out alive, not to mention the crown prince. Song Qinshu smiled. Didn't I promise your master to take care of you? It seems that I didn't break my promise. The yellow-shirted woman pursed her lips and smiled. Back then, my master couldn't stand your playboy personality and was worried that I would be harmed by you. So, he specifically asked you to teach me martial arts. That's fine. Call me master, and I will teach you everything I know. Song Qinshu pretended to stroke his long beard, pretending to be a teacher. Tui. The yellow-shirted woman spat, but refused to say it out loud. Song Qinshu moved his face closer to her. Then, what you said in the palace just now, does it still count? What did I say? I don't remember. The yellow-shirted woman's heart skipped a beat and she turned her head away, blushing. Song Qinshu sighed. If that's the case, I'll go back to the Guo family. They still have a bunch of princesses and princesses waiting for me to marry. The yellow-robed woman immediately became anxious. Although she knew that he was joking, she still subconsciously pulled him back. Do you really want me to repeat myself? Song Qinshu smiled and said, If you're too shy to say it, then let me kiss you. The girl in yellow unhappily rolled her eyes at him, thinking that kissing him would be even more excessive. Song Qinshu couldn't help but sigh. She was so beautiful that even the whites of her eyes were so beautiful. Looking at her fair and somewhat transparent skin, he couldn't help but feel his index finger move. He leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. Hey you! The yellow-robed girl was startled and subconsciously wanted to dodge, but the other party held her waist, making her unable to move. And because she turned her head to speak, the other party took the opportunity to kiss her red lips. The yellow-robed girl's body trembled, and her breathing quickened. She subconsciously wanted to push him away, but the other party was like a mountain, so she couldn't push him away. After pushing a few times, there was no effect, so she could only let him. Seeing the yellow-robed girl slowly close her eyes and let him do whatever he wanted, Song Qinshu couldn't help but be amused. It seemed that sometimes it was better for a man to take the initiative. These women were obviously willing, but for various reasons, they couldn't bring themselves to do it. No wonder those overbearing CEOs were so popular in his previous life. They were all upright in body and mouth. When they returned to Guling Courtyard, the yellow-robed girl suddenly became a little nervous. Brother Song, is Miss Rin really not fierce? Song Qinshu couldn't help but laugh. It's not like you haven't seen her before. Why are you suddenly so nervous? The yellow-robed girl bit her red lips. It's not the same. In the past, there was nothing between us, but now Song Qinshu laughed and said, I understand. It's the new daughter-in-law paying respects to the matriarch. If you're so nervous every time, then you'll be flustered in the future. In the future, when you see Zhou Jiruo, when you see a Jiu, when you see your two younger sisters, when you see… The yellow-robed girl was so angry that her face turned red, and she fiercely pinched his waist. It's all because of you, you womanizer, that I made such a fool of myself. Song Qinshu tightly held her soft little hand. Don't worry, Yingying is very easy to talk to. Even Hu and Yuan can get along with her peacefully. What are you worried about? Even so, the yellow-robed girl was still very nervous when she entered the courtyard. When Ren Yingying learned that Song Qinshu had returned, she hurriedly came out to greet him, and when she saw the yellow-robed girl, she was surprised. Sister Yang is also here, please sit. The yellow-robed girl immediately panicked and hurriedly said, Young Miss Ren, don't call me sister, I don't deserve it. Ren Yingying was startled, feeling that the yellow-robed girl was a little strange today, and looked inquiringly at Song Qinshu. Song Qinshu embarrassedly smiled. Yingying, she should call you sister in the future. Ren Yingying was extremely intelligent, and immediately understood. She pulled the yellow-robed girl's hand and sat down, and a trace of a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Actually, us sisters have been guessing when you would be tricked by this guy, but sister's face is too thin, so we were worried for you at that time. Fortunately, now it has finally come to fruition. Hearing a few words from her, the yellow-robed girl's panicked heart gradually calmed down, and she said with some embarrassment, Sister Ren, you can just call me Yingluo. Ren Yingying smiled. Then you can also call me Yingying, there is no need to call me sister. Our family doesn't have this rule. The yellow-robed girl made a sound of agreement, and quietly glanced at Song Qinshu, and the big stone in her heart was completely lifted. Song Qinshu saw that the two of them were chatting happily, but he was somewhat worried. They wouldn't have to go through the experience of 3 months without water to drink again, right? But aside from the two of them, there was also Hu Yuan, and the others in the residence, so there shouldn't be such a problem. The two of them chatted for a while, and then Ren Yingying began to ask about the matter of entering the palace, and Song Qinshu roughly explained the entire process. Ren Yingying nodded her head. Guojing's words revealed a piece of information. He mentioned that someone had shown him some secret files, and it seems like there really is someone behind this, which is in line with our previous speculation. Song Qingshu was surprised and couldn't help but sigh. Ying, you are really meticulous. If you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have noticed. The yellow-robed girl hurriedly asked, who is the person behind this? Could it be the Imperial City Department that has access to these secret files? The Imperial City Department is controlled by the Shui family. Could it be the Shui family? Ying replied, right now it doesn't matter who it is, the key is to lure him out. He has been hiding in the dark, and it is really difficult to guard against him. As long as he comes out of the water, it will be easy to deal with him. How to lure the snake out of the hole? With someone helping to think, Song Qingshu was too lazy to use his brain. Today's matter of you entering the palace certainly can't be hidden from people with intentions, and the crown prince's death will certainly be exaggerated. Sandu is seriously injured, and the key is that the sweeping monk is also injured, so the deterrence is not as strong as before. If the person in the dark wants to take action, this will be the best opportunity. Ying analyzed, but I am worried that the person will be afraid of your existence and won't dare to make a move, so we have to create a false impression that you were also injured in this battle, and we are taking you back to Yangzhou to heal. Song Qingshu shook his head. There are many spies in the palace, and our battle at that time may not be hidden from people with intentions. I'm afraid it won't be easy to make that person believe that I was injured. Then what should we do? Ying frowned slightly, obviously also having a headache. At this moment, a subordinate suddenly came with a secret letter. Song Qingshu took it and read it, and a smile immediately appeared on his face. That person can't hold back anymore. At this time, Yuan Zi sent a message from Huzhou. It turned out that someone had found Shuang-er, and Shuang-er had agreed according to the agreement and was now on the way to Linen. What does it mean? Ying and the yellow-robed woman came over to read the secret letter, but they couldn't understand anything. Only then did Song Qingshu roughly tell them about Shuang-er's matter. Ying was so scared that her beautiful face turned pale, and her fingers trembled as she stroked his chest. So this is how you got injured. I was wondering how someone could hurt you, and why didn't you tell me before? The main reason is that I was afraid that you would have a bad opinion of Shuang-er, and she actually changed her mind at the last moment. It was me who pulled her hand and stabbed her, Song Qingshu explained. Ying snorted angrily. Shuang-er is really affectionate and loyal to avenge Xiaobao, who died a long time ago. She is a rare, extraordinary woman in the world. How can we have a bad opinion of her? After all, it's you who flirt everywhere and finally get into trouble. The yellow-robed woman also couldn't help saying, it's indeed a little bad for you to rob others. You want to say that I'm despicable, right? Song Qingshu said with a wry smile. I did do a lot of wrong things in those years. Ying, however, was reminded of something and couldn't help scolding him. The means you used on me at that time were not glorious. It was only because I was blinded by lard that I fell in love with you. But if you always walk by the river, your shoes will always get wet. Shuang-er's case is also a warning. In the future, you'd better not seduce other people's wives and daughters, in case someone comes to avenge her husband one day. We have so many sisters. Are you still not satisfied? Even if you're not satisfied with your current status, what kind of woman can't you find? Why do you need to do such disgraceful things? I didn't force myself on them. Our relationship was consensual. It's not as unbearable as you think. Song Qingshu's old face was burning. Besides that, I've already washed my hands of prostitution. For some reason, his tone was a little guilty. Ying said with a faint smile, washed your hands of prostitution? What about Huang Rong? Song Qingshu was at a loss for words. He didn't know how to explain. The yellow-robed woman couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that even someone like Huang Rong couldn't escape your clutches. Speaking of which, I admire you a little. Ying nodded in agreement. When I heard the news, I was shocked, but I also admired you. Song Qinshu finally couldn't hold back his anger. Alright. If you say anything else, don't blame me for using the family rules. Family rules. The yellow-robed woman looked at Ren Yingying blankly. Ren Yingying blushed and couldn't help but spit. This bastard uses this trick every time. Thinking of how she would look when he used the genuine qi of joy, her heart beat wildly. How could she have the time to talk to him? 2 days later, a shocking news suddenly spread in the streets of Linnan. Have you heard that Song Qinshu, king of Qi, was assassinated? No one knows whether he's alive or dead. Nonsense. King of Qi's martial arts are unparalleled. How could anyone assassinate him? Of course not for men, but what about women? Which man can guard against an assassination when he's in the most ecstatic state? Well, it's really possible. King of Qi is the most romantic person with countless women around him. Sure enough, he will die on a woman's belly in the end. In the beginning, it was just a rumor. However, as time went on, more and more details became detailed. No one from the Prince of Qi's residence came out to clarify the matter. There were even people who saw the Princess of Qi weeping and secretly wearing mourning clothes. King of Qi was really dead. When this news came out, it was like thunder on the ground. The entire Southern Song officialdom was extremely shocked. But after a few days, an even more shocking news came. Princess Beijing rose up and called on the people to help the king. In just a few days, she broke into the palace and successfully overthrew the fake dynasty established by the Guo family and restored the orthodoxy of Zhao and Song. Who said I'm short? Chapter 25:13. The fake emperor, Guojing, was deposed and sent to the heavenly prison. He was waiting for the imperial court to publicly sentence him to death. The Jia family participated in the rebellion. Jia Zhen, Jia Lian, and Jia Rong died in the battle. Consort Jia, who was revived from the cold palace, was bestowed with white silk. The rest of the men in the Jia residence were stripped of their official titles. The Jia residence was sealed, and the Grand View Garden was searched. Shi Hao from the Shi family died in battle. Shi Miuan was sent to the heavenly prison. A series of officials from the Shi family were dismissed, and their properties were searched. Someone reported that Qin Keqing from the Jia family and Wei Ruolan from the Shi family were the remaining descendants of Chai Rong. Hence, the fact that the two families rebelled was confirmed. It was very likely that they would be executed. On the contrary, the officials from the Shui family had a meteoric rise. There was news that the two young ladies of the Shui family, Shui Baochai and Shui Baoqin, were going to be married to Prince Beijing as concubines. A series of news spread to Guling courtyard. Song Qinshu was shocked. It was really a thunderous move. Everything happened too fast. He had been faking his death for some time. These days, he had been hiding in the secret underground chamber of the courtyard. Every day, he was accompanied by beauties. He was busy arranging everything. When he had nothing to do, he had been living a comfortable life. It seems that the Shui family has long sought refuge with Prince Beijing. This time, they pushed the Jia family and Shi family to the front, and he has come back with a plan. Song Qinshu sighed. Actually, it is not surprising. Previously, Prince Beijing hid in the dark and was able to find out so many things about you. He must have borrowed the power of the Imperial City Department. The Imperial City Department has always been under the control of the Shui family, the yellow-shirt lady said. She was very clear about the power structure in Linnan. Song Qinshu grunted. Actually, just relying on the Imperial City Department might not be able to find so much information. Prince Beijing still controls the intelligence network of the Island of Heroes. That is why he could find so much information. Every country had their own intelligence network. The Southern Song Dynasty's Imperial City Department, the Qin Kingdom's Sticky Stick Department, the Jin Kingdom's Laundry Department, Liao's Secret Intelligence Department. But in terms of the details of the intelligence network, they were probably not as good as the Island of Heroes. After all, over the past few decades, the Island of Heroes had used the name of rewarding the good and punishing the evil to control too many low-level gangs. They had also used this to build a terrifying intelligence network. It had been Jia Shidao's painstaking effort for many years. Unfortunately, he had been defeated and killed in the Battle of Wutang Mountain. As the king of Zhao, Duke Beijing had been harboring evil intentions for a long time. She had seized the opportunity to take over most of the forces on the Isle of Heroes. When he appeared in the Jia family as Jia Baoyu, Jia Shidao's remaining confidant, Liao Yingzhong, had complained to him. Zhao De had taken the opportunity to win over most of Prime Minister Jia's secret forces. Oh right, how did Guo Jing and the others lose so badly? What about the sweeper monk and the others? Compared to the Jia and Shi families, Song Qingshu was more concerned about the situation of these people. When Ren Yingying heard this, she replied, "In the battle that night in the palace, the sweeping monk perished, and even Fu Yaohong died in battle. Of the other three, only one escaped, and Wei Ruolin also died. The Vulture Palace also suffered heavy losses. The Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao was seriously injured and captured. Mei Lan, Zhu Ju were also captured in order to save her. Fu Mini seemed to have disappeared in the chaos of the battle." Song Qingshu instantly frowned. In such a short time, so many people who used to be familiar with had died. Even though he had a strong mind, he was still shocked. However, he was more concerned about something else. Even the sweeping monk is dead? Although he was seriously injured, he was, after all, a great grandmaster. How could he die so easily? I was also shocked when I heard the news. Who else in the world do you think can kill him? Ren Yingying frowned slightly. I can't think of anyone. Song Qingshu shook his head. The sweeping monk is good at both Buddhism and Taoism. His cultivation is unfathomable. He is no weaker than immortal Zhang of Wutang Mountain. In the whole world, he is in the top 5 or even the top 3. Even if he was injured, he should be able to keep his life. Ren Yingying hurriedly reminded him, "This is a variable. You must be careful." Song Qingshu grunted in acknowledgement. His mood of watching the show became more cautious. At this moment, someone came to report that there was a girl outside the courtyard seeking an audience with the Prince of Qi. No matter what was said, she refused to leave. She wants to see me? Song Qingshu was somewhat surprised. Could it be that she doesn't know that I'm already dead? I've already told her, but she still insists. The subordinate replied. Ren Yingying and the yellow-robed girl immediately looked at him strangely. What kind of debt of love did she incur? Song Qingshu mused. Did that person report his name? She is the eldest miss of the Shi clan, Shi Shangyun. Song Qingshu's heart thumped. Quickly invite her in. He then said to Ren Yingying, Yingying, go receive her first. See what her intentions are. Ren Yingying grunted and hurriedly left the secret room. Song Qingshu went to a certain part of the wall. Here, there was a secret hole that allowed him to see what was happening in the room outside. Shi Shangyun was quickly brought in. At this moment, she was no longer in high spirits. Her hair was disheveled and her clothes were torn in several places. Her face was stained with many stains. It was unknown whether it was dust or dried blood. Miss Shi should be a wanted criminal. What business do you have with her? Ren Yingying asked. Shi Shangyun bit her lips. I want to see the Prince of Qi. Ren Yingying indifferently replied. He's not here. Everything is the same as what I said. Shi Shangyun shook her head. Everyone says that he's dead, but I don't believe them. I know that he's definitely still alive. Ren Yingying revealed a look of astonishment. Why do you think so? Shi Shangyun blankly shook her head. I don't know. In any case, I believe that he's definitely still alive. If he really is dead, I won't have any motivation to continue living. After she finished speaking, she squatted on the ground and started crying. Ren Yingying looked at the wall behind her with a strange expression. She wondered when this fellow had hooked up with Miss Sure. What business do you have with me? Song Qingshu walked out of the secret passage. He was also very curious because he knew that the other party was not like this because she fell in love with him. Hearing his voice, Shi Shangyun's body trembled. She suddenly raised her head. When she saw that it was really him, she was extremely excited. That's great. You're really still alive. That's great. Feeling the strange gazes of Ren Yingying and the yellow-robed woman, Song Qingshu sighed. What business do you have with me? Quickly say it. Don't make it seem like I've abandoned you. Shi Shangyun plopped down on her knees in front of him. I beg you to save the Shi family. I beg you to help me take revenge. Prince Beijing went back on his words. He killed Wei Ruolin. Sob, Song Qingshu shook his head. Miss Shi, why do you think I should help you? Shi Shangyun bit her red lips. As long as you can help me, I will be your servant from now on. I will be at your disposal. Song Qingshu sighed. Miss Shi, don't overestimate your charm. Do you think that a woman can really play such an important role when we are in this position? Shi Shangyun replied, I know I'm not enough, but you will definitely be interested in the thing in my hands. What is it? Song Qingshu didn't care. Shi Shangyun said, previously when we started the rebellion, Prince Beijing had been secretly with us. However, he went back on his word and suddenly betrayed us. We were caught off guard and suffered such a big loss. However, we still have some account books and catalogs with him in our hands, which can prove that he was involved in it before. The yellow-robed woman, who was watching the show, had a slight change in her expression. Previously, when she saw the rebels and traitors suffering, she was still a little pleased. Although Prince Beijing's means were despicable, he was still a member of the Zhao family after all. He could be considered to have recovered the country. However, if he was involved in the whole process from the beginning, then he was the culprit of all this. The nature was naturally different. Song Qingshu was not surprised and said, Where is the evidence? Let me see it. Shi Shangyun hesitated for a moment and finally took out an account book from her arms and handed it to him. I believe in Prince Qi's character. He will definitely not do something like burning the bridge after crossing it. In the end, the account book still had the warmth of a young girl. Song Qingshu casually flipped through it a few times and put it away. This thing can only be regarded as circumstantial evidence. Now that Prince Beijing is in control of the court, I'm afraid it is not realistic to use this to bring him down. In fact, this thing was still quite useful. This world paid attention to a good reason. He had already arranged everything in secret, except for this name. However, the weight of the evidence provided by Shi Shangyun was still a little lacking. It was difficult to directly hammer Prince Beijing to death. Shi Shangyun looked disappointed. Suddenly, she thought of something and said hurriedly, You can also look for Sister Bao. She has always been suspicious of Bao Yu's death. My father once mentioned that he suspected that Bao Yu's death was related to Prince Beijing. If you can persuade her to betray us, she, who is from the Imperial City Guards, will definitely have the evidence you want. Song Qingshu said in a deep voice, But I heard that she is about to marry Prince Beijing. She might even become the imperial concubine in the future. How can she betray Prince Beijing? Shi Shangyun shook her head. You don't understand her feelings for Bao Yu. The reason why she agreed to marry was completely out of consideration for the family's interests. However, once she knows that Prince Beijing killed Bao Yu, she will never agree. Song Qingshu thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, All right, I will look for Xue Baochai. If it really succeeds, I will try my best to take care of your Shi family. However, you should not have too much hope. After all, your Shi family participated in the rebellion. This is a serious crime that will result in the execution of 9 generations. I dare not guarantee whether you can keep it or not. With your words, I am relieved. We know that we have committed a grave sin. As long as we can keep our bloodline, we will be satisfied. Shi Shangyun's tears streamed down her face. This should not be a big problem. Song Qingshu nodded his head. Thank you, Brother Song. Shi Shangyun finally revealed a smile on her face. Then, her body softened and she fainted on the ground. Ren Yingying went over to check and said, "It should be due to excessive fatigue and mental exhaustion. She will be fine after a period of rest." Song Qingshu acknowledged her and asked her to help take care of Baoyu while he made a trip to the Imperial City Guards. Ren Yingying was a little worried. Could it be a trap set by them? Song Qingshu shook his head. Don't worry, I will be careful. Moreover, Shi Hao and Wei Ruolin are both dead. The Shi family will not put in so much effort to put on a show. Ren Yingying smiled. That's true. Song Qingshu quietly left Guling Courtyard and went all the way to the city center. Just as he was wondering if Shui Baochai was in the Imperial City Guards or the Shui family, he suddenly saw a beautiful figure in the Imperial City Guards uniform walking on the street with a heavy heart. Who else could it be but Shui Baochai? It really was effortless to find her. Song Qingshu did not waste any time. He immediately touched her and sealed her acupoints. Then, he carried her to an abandoned courtyard several li away. Who are you? Shui Baochai was extremely shocked. Although she had been a little distracted and had not been on guard, her opponent was able to subdue her in an instant and bring her here. His martial arts were too terrifying. This time, Song Qingshu did not conceal himself. He directly came in front of her and unsealed her acupoint. With his martial arts, she would not be able to escape even if she wanted to. Prince Qi? You are not dead? Shui Baochai's mouth was wide open, and her face was full of shock. Miss, aren't you too cruel? You want me dead so much after not seeing me for a long time? Song Qingshu laughed mockingly. I remember that we used to have a good time when we met. I didn't mean that. Shui Baochai looked a little embarrassed, but her heart was in turmoil. If Prince Qi was not dead, then the Shui family and Duke Beijing would be in danger. This time, I came to you mainly to ask for your help. Help me find evidence of Duke Beijing's crime. Song Qingshu went straight to the point. Shui Baochai frowned slightly. Although I would like to pretend to agree to your request, Prince Qi should know that I have an engagement with Duke Beijing. How can I help you to deal with him? But I remember that you like Jia Baoyu. Have you changed your love so quickly? Song Qingshu asked. A trace of pain flashed in Shui Baochai's eyes. Baoyu is dead. Don't you want to know who killed him? Song Qingshu looked at her quietly. Of course, it's the guy who pretended to be him and went to Xixia to find a spouse. Shui Baochai said bitterly. Thinking of how she was intimate with that person along the way, and how she was with her enemy, she felt extremely painful. Song Qingshu sighed and said in Jia Baoyu's voice, Sister Bao, do you hate me so much? Hearing that familiar voice, Shui Baochai trembled, and then looked at the man in front of her in disbelief. The plot is really coming to an end. Don't be surprised if it suddenly ends one day. Chapter 25:14. It's you. Shui Baochai looked at him in shock, and began to speak incoherently. Song Qingshu understood her words. Yes, it's me. It's you. Shui Baochai clenched her teeth, pulled out her long sword, and stabbed it at him angrily. With a flick of Song Qingshu's finger, the sword in her hand slipped out of her grip and fell to the ground, the blade still trembling. I know my kung fu is far inferior to yours, so I can't take revenge. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Shui Baochai's face turned pale, and she raised her snow-white and slender neck in resignation. Song Qingshu said lightly, I think you misunderstood. I didn't kill Jia Baoyu. He naturally knew why she was so angry, so he went straight to the point. Who else could it be if not you? Shui Baochai said bitterly. You killed him, and then disguised yourself as him, sneaked into the Jia family, and used the information to deal with them. Finally, the Jia family, which was at its peak, was defeated. What was more hateful was that he disguised himself as Jia Baoyu, and caused her to throw herself into his arms. Of course, she could not say this out loud. Song Qingshu shook his head. Miss Shui, you are a smart person. You should remember whether I returned to the Jia mansion as Jia Baoyu before or after the battle on Mount Wudong. Shui Baochai was stunned, and then remembered that he returned to the Jia mansion after the battle. At that time, the Jia mansion was doomed to be destroyed, and there was indeed no need for him to spy for information. But she snorted, "Who knows what you are thinking? Everyone knows that Prince Qi is a romantic and elegant man. Maybe he has his eyes on the beautiful madams and young ladies in the Grand View Garden?" Song Qingshu sighed. "Am I so unbearable in Miss Shui's eyes? When have I ever bullied any madam or young lady? Take you for example, you were defenseless against me at that time. Did I do anything to you?" "You didn't do anything to me." Shui Baochai blushed, thinking that she hugged, and even kissed him at that time. "Ahem," Song Qingshu coughed awkwardly. "It's mainly because I behaved too strangely, and I was worried that you would see through me. At least I didn't spoil your innocence." Shui Baochai's face alternated between green and red, but the other party really didn't go any further. Song Qingshu then said, "I have another purpose in pretending to be Jia Baoyu. Someone else killed him." Shui Baochai sneered. "If you didn't kill him, how could you disguise yourself so well? If I remember correctly, the Prince of Qi should have never met Jia Baoyu before." "Who said I haven't seen it?" Song Qingshu replied. "Miss Shui was in the Imperial City Department, so you should know that I was poisoned by the golden ripple flower back then." Shui Baochai nodded. Back then, this matter had caused a huge uproar. Everyone thought that he was dead, and he had indeed disappeared for many months. Who knew that he would suddenly appear out of nowhere, and his martial arts had even improved further? Everyone was guessing what had happened to him during that period of time. Song Qingshu explained, "At that time, I was on the run and found a passenger ship. Then, by chance, I was kidnapped by the people of the Isle of Heroes and brought to the island." He roughly told her what had happened at that time, including how he had witnessed Jia Baoyu being killed in front of him. Of course, he ignored the erotic details of how Qi Feng had forced the poison out of his body. After finally learning the truth about Jia Baoyu's death, Shui Baochai burst into tears. "My Baoyu, so you died on the Isle of Heroes without a sound. Who was that man in black?" Shui Baochai looked at him hurriedly. Song Qingshu didn't answer her directly. Instead, he told her what had happened on Wutang Mountain. Jia Sherdao has been thinking about this. At first, he suspected that Jiao Lian and Wang Shifeng killed him for the inheritance of the family. However, Jiao Lian and Wang Shifeng didn't have the ability to do so, so he suspected that it was Jia Shi. So, he killed Jia Shi on Wutang Mountain. However, what Jia Shi said before he died showed that he didn't do it. I can also testify to this because the person who killed him was young, not an old man like Jia Shi. Then who was it? Shui Baochai was extremely shocked. There were many things she didn't know before. No matter how powerful the Imperial City Guards were, only a few people knew what had happened on the Isle of Heroes and Wutang Mountain. In fact, you already have a guess in your heart. Why ask when you already know the answer? Song Qingshu sighed. To determine who the murderer is, there is a simple rule: whoever benefits the most. But I think you are very likely to be the murderer. Shui Baochai was actually a little shaken, but she still said it. I have witnesses. Let's not talk about Zhou Zhiruo, who was present at the time. After all, she is my wife, so her testimony doesn't count, Song Qingshu said. In addition, there is Qi Feng, the young lady of the Wan family. You can ask her for proof. Who doesn't know the great charm of the King of Qi? That young lady of the Wan family has been with you for a long time. She has probably been conquered by you long ago. How can I believe her words? Shui Baochai said. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, "If you put it like that, then I can't do anything about it. After all, we have been together for so long. Why would you rather believe someone else than me?" Shui Baochai bit her lip. "Because our relationship was built on a lie. How can I believe what you say? If you don't have any other evidence, then there is no need to talk about this anymore. Either let me go or kill me." Song Qingshu suddenly felt a headache coming on. This woman's stubbornness was truly troublesome. She must have been deceived so badly by me pretending to be Jia Baoyu that she wouldn't believe anything I say now. There is one more person. Song Qingshu's mind suddenly lit up. "Who?" Shui Baochai hurriedly asked. "Jia Shidao's chief advisor, Liao Yingzhong," Song Qingshu said. "He is the closest to Jia Shidao, so he must know the most details. Last time, when I sneaked into the Jia family as Jia Baoyu, he complained to me that Duke Beijing took the opportunity to take away most of Jia Shidao's subordinate." Shui Baochai's expression suddenly changed. She hurriedly said, "Take me to the suburbs in the south of the city." "Why?" Song Qingshu was stunned. "I received news that Liao Yingzhong is hiding in a residential house in the suburbs in the south of the city. The killers of the Imperial City Department are rushing to execute him," Shui Baochai said quickly. Song Qingshu's expression also changed. He didn't dare to delay any longer. He grabbed her waist and rushed to the south of the city. Shui Baochai blushed. She was about to say something, but she suddenly fell into a trance for a moment. He had held her like this in the Western Xia. This feeling was so familiar. Song Qingshu didn't have time to think about this. Liao Yingzhong was a very important person. Even if he didn't want to testify, he was still Jia Shidao's chief advisor. An hour later, in a ruined temple in the suburbs, the killers of the Imperial City Department were lying on the ground. Liao Yingzhong, who was wounded all over, looked at the man in front of him with a complicated expression. "I didn't expect you to save me in the end. I think Mr. Liao knows that there is no eternal enemy in the world." The man was Song Qingshu. Fortunately, he arrived in time at the last moment. Liao Yingzhong nodded. "Yes, now only you can help us take revenge." However, his expression suddenly became strange. He looked at Shui Baochai and asked, "Why is she here?" Song Qingshu told him why he came, and Liao Yingzhong replied, "I see. I have been investigating the whereabouts of the young master. I suspected many people before, but now I am sure that the murderer who killed the young master must be Duke Beijing. The most famous messengers of the Island of Heroes are Zhang San and Li Si, but they also have Zhaoda and Qianer, and Zhaoda is Duke Beijing. When the young master was killed, Duke Beijing shouldn't have been on the island, but later I found out that he was neither in Lin nor in Shanin's mansion. During that time, his whereabouts disappeared. Obviously, he sneaked into the Island of Heroes to assassinate the young master. That's why he had no alibi. But this is only your side of the story. Now that you and Duke Beijing have a deep grudge, it is inevitable that you will deliberately lie to him." Shui Baochai frowned. Liao Yingzhong looked at her deeply. "Miss Bao, I've watched you and Baoyu grow up. I've watched you two grow up together. I'll say something disrespectful, but I've always regarded you as my son and future daughter-in-law from the bottom of my heart. Why would I lie to you about this? If you still don't believe me, I can take you to see the relevant records. But now that the Jia's mansion has been raided, it may be difficult to find these records." "There's no need for that." Shui Baochai's expression changed. In fact, she had already believed it. As a member of the Imperial City Guards, she had the ability to analyze. She just didn't want to believe this possibility. "What can I do now? Our Shui family is completely tied to Duke Beijing. How can I let the whole family die because of my personal grudge?" "Actually, it is easy to solve this problem," Liao Yingzhong suddenly said. 877 Good Book Network, How to Solve It? Shui Baochai was stunned. Liao Yingzhong said, The basis of the alliance between your Shui family and Duke Beijing is that you and Shui Baoqin will be his concubine. Since Duke Beijing can marry, why can't Prince Qi marry? Song Qingshu thought to himself, I can't tell that this guy has the characteristics of a matchmaker. Shui Baoqi was ashamed and angry. How can this change suddenly? Besides, I don't want to marry anyone. Liao Yingzhong said in a deep voice, Miss Shui, you have to think it through. From a woman's point of view, Prince Qi is better than Duke Beijing in all aspects. From the point of view of family interests, since Prince Qi is not dead, all the plans of Duke Beijing are destined to be in vain. It is not too late for your Shui family to change now. If you wait until Duke Beijing is defeated to change, I am afraid it will be too late. Shui Baoqi was stunned. The last sentence of the other party hit the nail on the head. Now, the Shui family still had the capital to bargain. If they waited until the dust settled, everything would be too late. However, she was still a little hesitant. We may not lose. Liao Yingzhong sneered. I have always had a guess. Now that I see that Prince Qi is safe and sound, I am more certain that he has been luring the snake out of the hole, waiting for Duke Beijing to jump out. Now it is time to close the net. The only thing he lacks now is the title of a master, but I have this title. I have the evidence that Duke Beijing colluded with Pan Ren and Pan Bing to coerce the crown prince to rebel and die. Is this true? Song Qingshu did not expect there would be such a surprise. With this and the account book provided by Shi Shangyun, he could justifiably kill Duke Beijing. Of course it is true. Liao Yingzhong gritted his teeth and said, When I noticed that Duke Beijing secretly bribed the former subordinates of the Prime Minister, I began to guard against him. This time, the Jia family was incited to help Guojing rebel, and he contributed a lot. Unfortunately, Jia Zhen and Jiao Lian were too stupid. I knew that they had been blinded by interests, so I gave up persuading them. Instead, I made early preparations and found the relevant evidence. After that, he sighed deeply, looked at Shui Baoqi and said, This time, your Shui family has hurt the Jia family very badly. If it were not for the fact that I have watched you grow up and that you have such a good relationship with Baoyu, I would not want to say so much to you. This is the last chance, you must seize it. Shui Baoqi bit her red lips tightly, but her beautiful face was full of struggle. She looked at Song Qingshu and said, You really did not kill Baoyu? Song Qingshu shook his head and said, I think you have your own judgment in your heart. It is useless for me to say more. Shui Baoqi hesitated for a moment and suddenly asked, Then what do you mean by this matter? As soon as she finished speaking, her face became as red as if it was covered with rouge. Song Qingshu smiled slightly and said, Sister Bao is an outstanding beauty. What's more, you took good care of me on the way to Shixia. Shui Baoqi was very embarrassed and said, That is not for you. Song Qingshu said, Anyway, I am very impressed by your gentleness and thoughtfulness. So as long as Miss agrees, I will naturally ask for it. Shui Baoqi suddenly lowered her head and said, It is not because I like you, but for the family. Song Qingshu went directly to hold her hand and said, You will like me. Shui Baoqi was shocked and subconsciously wanted to withdraw her hand, but it was held tightly. Her heart was beating wildly, and she thought that this guy's confident look was really asking for a beating. However, compared to Princess Beijing, this guy was more pleasing to the eye. Liao Yingzhong, who was at the side, secretly sighed. If only Baoyu was still here. Shui Baoqi suddenly thought of something and said, But I can't represent the family. My father may not agree. Song Qingshu smiled faintly and said, Your father is a smart man. He will agree. At the same time, he secretly added in his heart that if he did not agree, he would beat him until he agreed. Next, Song Qingshu quietly brought Liao Yingzhong and Shui Baoqi to the Shui family. The Shui family did not know what had happened. They only knew that at the beginning, the master was furious. The masters in the residence, the red dot of the Central Plains, and even Shui Yi, who was recuperating in seclusion, rushed to the study. However, it did not take long for it to fall into silence. In the end, when the master came out, his expression was calm. There was no sign of anger. He was just as calm as an ancient well. He gave out orders one after another. At the same time, he secretly summoned some of his trusted subordinates for a long time. On the second day of the court meeting, they began to discuss about the new emperor. Although the fake emperor had been deposed, Zhao Go had already died in the previous internal strife. The crown prince had also died. Prince Yi had also died in the Battle of Mount Wudong. The two successors that Zhao Go had secretly prepared were both dead. Moreover, he was infertile and had no children. For a moment, everyone began to discuss who to make as their enemy. Some people in the court suggested a few grandmasters who were closer to Zhao Go's bloodline. However, they were all rejected by others with various reasons. Until someone suddenly suggested that Princess Beijing, Zhao Shiqing, was the son of Emperor Taizong's great-great-grandson, Zhao Zhongming, the 10th daughter of Emperor Renzong, and the grandnephew of the great princess of Qin Lu. Moreover, he had played a decisive role in eliminating the rebellion of the later Zhou dynasty. Of course, Prince Beijing immediately stepped out and expressed humbly that he was not suitable. After all, his bloodline was far from that of the emperor. However, he could not stop the various officials from quoting the classics to show that he had made great contributions and was the best candidate for the new emperor. All the officials in the court were smart. They could all see that this was a self-directed show. Although they were somewhat dissatisfied, now that the emperor and the crown prince were dead, Prince Qi was also dead. Prince Beijing had long taken control of the situation. No one dared to jump out and undermine him. Just as Duchess Beijing was about to become the new emperor by default, Xueji, who was in charge of political affairs, suddenly came out to accuse Duchess Beijing of dozens of crimes. He said that everything that had happened before was part of his conspiracy. The Jia and Shi clans rebelled, helped Guojing ascend the throne, and murdered the emperor and the crown prince. As soon as he spoke, the audience was in an uproar. The things that he revealed were too shocking. Although some people had secretly speculated before, they were limited to speculations and did not dare to think about it. Now that Xueji had taken the lead, a series of other officials also came out to accuse Prince Beijing. They presented all kinds of evidence, and the process was extremely detailed. Everyone immediately believed them. The only strange thing was that the Xue family was not on the same side as Prince Beijing. Why did he suddenly change sides? Could it be that Xueji wanted to become the emperor himself? But this was clearly impossible. Xueji was also in a difficult situation. Since he had agreed to cooperate with Song Qinshu, he naturally had to prove his loyalty. Moreover, Liao Yingzhong had also analyzed with him that the Xue family had participated in those previous events. If he wanted to ensure the safety of the Xue family, he could only completely push all the blame to Prince Beijing. Therefore, he had to take the risk and take the lead to make trouble. Prince Beijing was shocked and angry. He never thought that Xueji would suddenly betray him. However, now that it had come to this, he could not care about the reason behind it. Instead, he had to settle the current chaotic situation as soon as possible. Guards, Xueji is misleading the public with his words. Take him down. Xueji was not in a hurry. Since the founding of the Song dynasty, no official has ever been convicted because of his words. Prince Beijing, as a descendant of the founding emperor, do you not even know this rule? Prince Beijing snorted. Now that the world is in chaos, we naturally need to punish severely. Our Song dynasty has finally calmed down, but you are misleading the public with your words. I don't know who has bewitched you, but it is obvious that you want to overthrow the Song dynasty. How can I just sit back and do nothing? Xueji directly scolded. Zhao Shiqing, you killed the emperor and the crown prince just to usurp the throne. You still say that you represent the Song dynasty. Doesn't your conscience hurt? Prince Beijing's face twitched. He directly waved his hand, and a large group of guards came in to arrest Xueji. Xueji's expression changed slightly. Although the Xue family was powerful, they were all in the official circles. They did not have much power in the palace. At this moment, another group of soldiers rushed in to protect him. Wang Ziting stood out. Prince Beijing, we can only know if what Xueji said is true or not after investigating. Now that you are in such a hurry, are you planning to silence us? Seeing him jump out, how could Prince Beijing not know that he had fallen into a trap? Xueji had always been working with him. If he really investigated, he would definitely not be able to hide it. Now that things had come to this, he could only make up his mind. Guards, someone is causing trouble in the court. Arrest them all. If they resist, kill them. How could he not know that even if he settled everything today, the rumors would spread? The reputation of the virtuous king that he had painstakingly built up for decades would be ruined. However, he could not care about this now. If he could not suppress everything in time, he would be doomed eternally. Are you the only one? Wang Ziting sneered. Come, arrest this traitor who killed the emperor and usurped the throne. If he resists, kill him. Wang Ziting was in charge of the front palace. Previously, he had been watching from the sidelines, so people had ignored his existence. Now that he had come out, everyone realized that his subordinates were no less powerful than Prince Beijing's. The soldiers of both sides quickly clashed, and it was difficult to determine the victor for a while. Only the civil officials were left shivering in fear. Prince Beijing sneered and said, Wang Ziting, Xueji, do you think you can defeat me like this? Have you ever wondered why Guojing had so many experts under him, but I managed to suppress them in such a short time? Chapter 25:15. Tsk. Little Ching, you still have to rely on me in the end. A burst of strange laughter resounded in the main hall, and the originally magnificent imperial palace suddenly became ghastly, causing everyone's heart to skip a beat when they heard it. A gray shadow flashed in. Along the way, a lot of imperial guards collapsed to the ground before they could even react. The people at the side looked over in shock and discovered that there was a red dot on each of their forehead. It was obvious that their brains had been pierced by the opponent's real chi. Is he a man or a ghost? Xueji and the others looked at each other in shock. Only Wang Ziting was relatively calm. After all, they had met on Mount Wudong before. Patriarch Sunflower. Not bad, young one. You recognize me. An old eunuch appeared on top of the censer in front of the dragon throne. He seemed weightless, and his appearance caused the temperature in the hall to drop by several degrees. Patriarch Sunflower, do you have to be so eerie every time you come out? It makes people uncomfortable. With a light snort, another woman in white slowly walked out from the inner chamber behind the dragon throne. Although some details showed that she was not young, she still had a graceful air about her. Lin Chaoying, if I hadn't been a eunuch since I was young, I would have taken you as my wife no matter what. Patriarch Sunflower chuckled. The woman in white's expression turned cold. Are you forcing me to fight you? It's just a joke. Why are you so angry? Patriarch Sunflower chuckled and changed the subject. Do you want to deal with these people, or should I? Lin Chaoying ignored him and looked at Prince Beijing. We had an agreement before. We'll only help you deal with the sweeping monk, not your hired thugs. Prince Beijing smiled apologetically. Senior, you're too serious. I have great respect for both of you. How could I treat you as my hired thugs? Patriarch Sunflower smiled. Little Cheng, since you've served me well all these years, I'll help you get rid of them. You don't have to beg this woman anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned into a blur and grabbed at Xueji with one hand and Wang Ziting with the other. Xueji did not know martial arts, so he could not resist at all. Wang Ziting's martial arts were not weak, but when his opponent grabbed him, he found that he was in the same situation as Xueji, unable to resist at all. It was at this moment that Patriarch Sunflower's smiling face suddenly changed. He turned back to his original spot and looked at the entrance of the great hall with vigilance. I was wondering who killed the sweeping monk. So it was you too. A tall and handsome figure slowly walked in from the main hall. The people in the hall finally saw his face clearly, and they all cried out in surprise. It's King Chi. King Chi is not dead. Ha ha ha, King Chi's martial arts are unparalleled. How could he die so easily? Duke Beijing's face changed. It's actually you. How is it possible? Song Qinshu smiled. You schemed against me. Are you disappointed to see that I'm not dead? Duke Beijing was a very smart person. She immediately reacted. So Xueji and Wang Ziding were all ordered by you. No wonder, Song Qinshu sighed. I don't like to hear the word instigate. It was clearly you who deliberately incited the Jia and Shi families to aid the Guo family in their rebellion, causing the death of the crown prince and the emperor, coveting the throne. Why do you make me look like a conspirator now? Nonsense. Duke Beijing did not expect that one moment he was at the peak of his life, and the next moment he would fall from the clouds. The huge contrast made her mind a mess. I have enough evidence here. I'm sure all the lords in the hall can tell the truth. Song Qinshu said calmly. Someone had already sorted out all kinds of information and handed it to the ministers in the hall. Almost everyone had a copy. These ministers were all smart people. After reading through the information, how could they not know what was going on? They all pointed at Duke Beijing, and some even cursed her in a bad temper. Duke Beijing's face suddenly flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. In that case, no one will leave here alive today. With his order, another large group of soldiers rushed in. He was still worried. He hurriedly said to Ancestor Sunflower and Lin Chaoying, Seniors, please take care of Song Qinshu. Now, only the two of you can deal with him if you join forces. Lin Chaoying frowned. I said, I'm not your fighter. Prince Beijing said in a deep voice, Senior Lin, even if you don't do it for me, think about Dayu. Now that the Lin family is completely tied to me, if I fall, the Lin family will be doomed eternally. Hearing his words, Lin Chaoying frowned. After a long time, she sighed and said to Song Qinshu, Song boy, I owe you a favor on Wutang Mountain. Today you can go. I won't make things difficult for you. Duke Beijing was anxious. Senior. Lin Chaoying ignored him. She just looked at Song Qinshu quietly. Song Qinshu smiled. How is Senior Chongyang now? Wang Chongyang had been fatally injured in the battle on Wutang Mountain. No one knew how long he could live. Lin Chaoying had a worried look on her face. His injuries were too severe. Although I tried everything I could to heal him, I only managed to prolong his life for half a year. Now he is in eternal rest in the tomb of the living dead. Song Qinshu sighed. Senior Chongyang is a teacher and a friend to me. I didn't expect that last time we parted it would be forever. Lin Chaoying was obviously very touched. At that time I planned to go with him. But I thought that he couldn't die without getting his revenge. So I came back. It's a pity that the monk's martial arts are too high. I may not be his match in a one-on-one fight, let alone kill him. Fortunately, a good opportunity appeared. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If you hadn't injured him first, even if Patriarch Sunflower and I joined hands, it wouldn't have been so easy to kill him. Among the great grandmasters, except for Song Qinshu, the gap between them was actually very small. It might be easy to determine the winner, but it was difficult to kill them. The success of this revenge was due to all kinds of favorable factors. If it happened again, it might not be so smooth. For a moment, Song Qinshu's expression was a bit complicated. When he first came to this world, he was at his most desperate. At that time, his meridians were broken and all hope was lost. Fortunately, he was guided by the monk and stepped into Jianghu. Now, he was partly responsible for the monk's death. It was really fate that made fools of people. At this time, Patriarch Sunflower's shrill voice sounded. Little song, we are old acquaintances. It doesn't look good if we fight. Why don't you seek refuge with Prince Beijing? With your ability, you can continue to be King Qi's Minister of Peace. Wouldn't that be a happy ending? Song Qingshu also laughed. Since we are old acquaintances, why don't you help me instead of him? Patriarch Sunflower smiled awkwardly. All these years, little Cheng has been very filial to me. If I leave him, it would be a bit embarrassing. Song Qingshu sighed. So you have no choice but to fight? Patriarch Sunflower shook his head. You alone can't beat the two of us together. You should listen to Lin Qiaoying's advice. Leave quickly. For the sake of our old friendship, I won't make things difficult for you. Song Qingshu didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Lin Qiaoying. Senior Lin, now that you have taken revenge, why do you still work for Prince Beijing? You should know that the Emperor and the Crown Prince were killed by him. Lin Qiaoying answered, Our Lin family is too close to him. We can't get away. Moreover, Daiyu has an engagement with him. I can't just sit by and watch something happen to him. Song Qingshu was taken aback. Lin Daiyu actually had an engagement with Duchess Beijing? But then he thought it was normal. No matter how much she liked Jia Baoyu was already dead. These years, Prince Beijing had been trying to win him over, and the Lin family had been very close to him. Zhao Shiqing could be considered a master of both the pen and the sword, and he might become the emperor. It was normal for Lin Ruhai to bet on him. After all, if he succeeded, the Lin family could replace the four great families and become the most powerful family in the Southern Song dynasty. Speaking of the ending of Dream of the Red Chamber, there was a saying that Lin Daiyu married Prince Beijing as a concubine. The power of fate was really strong. Wang Ziding, who was at the side, was secretly worried for Song Qingshu. Now that the Lin family and Prince Beijing were tied together, he had to face two great grandmasters alone. He was afraid that he would be in danger. Even a powerful figure like the sweeping monk was killed by the two of them. At this moment, Song Qingshu suddenly said, Senior Lin, why don't you consider me? I think that my looks, martial arts, and status are not worse than Prince Beijing. I can totally let Miss Lin marry me. It's the same for your Lin family. You don't have to take such a big risk. Wang Ziding was speechless. I was worried about you. In the end, you hooked up with another family's miss in front of me? Lin Qiaoying was also stunned. She couldn't help but spit. You really? It's not enough that you hooked up with my disciples. You even have ideas about my niece? Song Qingshu's smile was very pure. Don't let the goodies flow to outsiders. What do you mean by don't let the goodies flow to outsiders? Everyone in the field secretly scolded him for being shameless. Prince Beijing hurriedly said, Senior Lin, don't listen to his nonsense. This person is greedy and lustful. I don't know how many women he has defiled. If Daiyu marries him, with her noble and sentimental character, she will definitely not be able to bear the jealousy and will definitely die of depression. Lin Qiaoying couldn't help but secretly nod when she heard this. Song Qingshu is good in all aspects, but he has too many women around him. Song Qingshu sighed. Prince Beijing just pretended to be pure and had few desires. After he became the emperor, he has 3 palaces and 6 courtyards and 72 concubines. Will there be a lack of women around him? Like he had a marriage alliance with Miss Xue previously. Lin Qiaoying frowned. What he said was somewhat reasonable. All the stinky men in the world are all shameless people. Song Qingshu then said, Senior Lin, you don't have to worry about it. Miss Xue was also betrothed to him previously, but after they recognized each other's true colors, they changed their marriage to me. I will treat them and the Xue family sincerely. In addition, Miss Lin and Miss Xue are also considered friends. If she marries me, she will have an acquaintance by her side. She can talk to her and relieve her worries. The officials in the imperial court were dumbfounded when they heard this. What the hell? There is an acquaintance? Can this thing also be used to talk about acquaintances? Lin Qiaoying was also so angry that she laughed instead. Why do I want to beat you more the more I listen to it? Song Qinshu put away his smile. Senior Lin, I was just analyzing the pros and cons with you just now. You have to think about it clearly. Now that Prince Beijing's conspiracy has been exposed, do you want the Lin family to be reviled by thousands of people together with him? Taking 10,000 steps back, in the current situation, even if you support him, the odds of winning are only 50-50. But if the Lin family is on my side, we will definitely win. Senior is a smart person, and naturally, you will not be affected by your emotions. Lin Qiaoying was stunned and understood that what he said was indeed reasonable. In fact, if Prince Beijing was in a good position, she did not mind helping him. But now it was proven that he murdered the emperor and the crown prince. It was really endless trouble. Was it really necessary for the Lin family to accompany him to take the risk? Prince Beijing was anxious and was about to speak, but Lin Qiaoying took a deep breath. Well, you deal with the matter between you. The Lin family will not help either side. Senior. Prince Beijing hurriedly pulled her sleeves, but Lin Qiaoying's figure was so fast. The next moment, she had already left the hall. If I don't help the other party, it is also worthy of the years of friendship between our two families. Don't make it difficult for me. As for the marriage between Lin Daiyu and Song Qinshu, she did not even mention it. Anyway, as long as she, a great grandmaster, was here, there could be no problem for the Lin family. She disappeared, and the expressions of the people in the hall suddenly became strange. Even Prince Beijing's subordinates were measuring the strength of the two sides. Song Qinshu looked at Ancestor Sunflower with a smile. Ancestor, now it is only the two of us. Do you still want to fight with me? Ancestor Sunflower laughed. Look at what you said. What kind of relationship do we have? Of course, I am on your side. After saying that, he jumped to his side, pointed at Prince Beijing and scolded, You deceived the emperor. Now that the evidence is conclusive, what else can you say? His sudden change of attitude shocked everyone. Who would have thought that he would be so unprincipled? Betraying the emperor just like that? Where was the bearing of a great grandmaster? You! Prince Beijing was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He never expected that in the blink of an eye, he would become a loner. Just as he was about to say something, the scene suddenly changed. Ancestor Sunflower suddenly attacked the vital acupoint on the back of Song Qinshu, who was very close to him. Chapter 25:16. Everything happened too quickly. A second ago, the two of them were still talking about old times warmly, and the next second, they suddenly turned hostile. Patriarch Sunflower was fast to begin with. Almost as soon as he made his move, he had already pressed down on the vital acupuncture point on Song Qinshu's back. Wang Ziting and Xue Ji felt a chill in their hearts. It was over. If anything happened to Song Qinshu, the Beijing Marquis would settle the score with their two clans, and they would definitely die a tragic death. They wanted to save him, but how could they intervene in the sneak attack of a great grandmaster? Patriarch Sunflower was overjoyed when he saw that his palm was about to press down on Song Qinshu's back. But in the next moment, his smile froze because he found that his attack had hit a shadow. Then, a sharp and unparalleled sword energy counterattacked. He hurriedly exerted his body movement to the extreme and retreated 7 steps in a row before he stopped. Looking at the broken half of the embroidery needle in his hand, his face was gloomy. You knew I was going to sneak attack you? Song Qinshu sighed. I know old ancestor's temper very well. How can I not be cautious? What's more, if you really want to join forces with me, you can directly take down Duchess Beijing at the beginning to show your sincerity. Why do you have to deliberately come to my side? But what I don't understand is, no matter what, we are old acquaintances. Why would you risk your life to break off with me? Patriarch Sunflower threw the broken needle aside and straightened his back. He no longer had a wretched and gloomy temperament. Instead, he had a dignified air, as if he were the emperor of the world. He said, "You should know that I absorbed dragon chi to cultivate. But I don't know why. A few years ago, the dragon chi in the Manchurian dynasty was very strong, but not long after I went there to absorb it, I found that the dragon chi in the Manchurian dynasty was dissipating very quickly. Later, I went to the Southern Song Imperial Mausoleum. There was a lot of dragon chi there, and I thought it was enough for me to break through the void. But who knew, not long after, the dragon chi dissipated again at an alarming rate. I didn't know if it was because I absorbed it that it dissipated, or if it was going to dissipate anyway. At first, I thought that I was going against the heavens and that I was being punished by the heavens. But then I saw you on Wutang Mountain." Patriarch Sunflower gave him a deep look. "I noticed that you have dragon chi protecting you as well. When I saw you this time, I noticed that the dragon chi swirling above your head was comparable to the dragon chi of the Great Qing dynasty. It suddenly dawned on me that the reason why the dragon chi of both the Manchurian Qing and the Southern Song dynasty dissipated so quickly was because their chi flow had been transferred to you. You were destined to become a sovereign." Song Qingshu was startled. He thought about the human sovereign that the fairy of the 9 heavens had mentioned before, and thought that such a mysterious thing was actually true. "So you knew that I wouldn't let you absorb my fate, so you took the risk?" Patriarch Sunflower laughed. "That's right. Whether I absorbed the chi of the Manchurian Qing or the Southern Song dynasty, it didn't affect you at all. You could just stand by and watch. But if I wanted to absorb your chi flow and destroy your empire, you would never agree. Instead of that, I might as well make the first move. It's a pity that you avoided it. But it doesn't matter. Although the dragon chi I've refined over the years isn't enough to break through the void, it's enough to make me invincible in the world." Patriarch Sunflower's aura was fully unleashed, to the point where the faint sound of a dragon's roar could be heard in the hall. Quite a few people even had the impression that he was no longer the stooped eunuch, but rather a king sitting on a dragon throne. Song Qingshu looked a little strange. "You're so confident that you're invincible?" Patriarch Sunflower gave him a deep look. "Little Song, I know that you've made rapid progress over the years. You're already a grandmaster at such a young age. But I've been in this realm for decades. My experience and knowledge in this area are far beyond that of a junior with an unstable foundation like yours. Besides, after refining the dragon chi of both the Manchurian Qing and the Southern Song dynasty, it's actually more than enough to kill me." Song, this chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Song Qingshu shook his head. "I know the monk's cultivation better than anyone else. If he hadn't been seriously injured, how could you have killed him? Besides, did you claim that you're invincible in the world because of your mouth? Talking for so long is not as convincing as fighting." Patriarch Sunflower was so angry that he let out an ear-piercing scream. Everyone in the hall, be it Prince Beijing's men or Wang Ziding's men, stopped fighting and covered their ears with their hands. Cracks appeared on many of the cups and vases in the hall. Patriarch Sunflower moved faster than the sound, and an embroidery needle appeared in his hand. The friction between the embroidery needles and the air seemed to produce some sparks, vaguely forming roaring golden dragons. The entire hall was suddenly filled with a terrifying pressure. Whether it was the guards with powerful martial arts, the strong-willed people like Xueji and Wang Ziding, or even Duchess Beijing who had reached the Grandmaster realm, all of their expressions changed drastically. It was as if they had seen the most terrifying scene in the legends. They all knelt on the ground and trembled, unable to summon any strength to resist. Song Qingshu was now the target of the attack, and the pressure he felt was thousands, if not tens of thousands, of times greater. Patriarch Sunflower had vanished from his vision, to be replaced by an enormous golden dragon that bore the will of the dragon god, and was about to crush an ant from the mortal world. Song Qingshu bit the tip of his tongue, and the pain finally brought him back to his senses. Humph, even the Empyrean fairy can't do anything to me. What's so scary about a mere dragon god? An air of arrogance surged out of his chest, and he turned into a giant green sword, which he slashed at the golden dragon. In almost an instant, the golden dragon's head was cut in two. The terrible pressure in the hall disappeared, and a figure flew back like a broken rag doll. He hit a nearby pillar and slowly fell to the ground. What was that just now? It was so terrifying. Wang Ziding came to his senses and found that his clothes were soaked in cold sweat. Even thinking about it now, his legs still felt like jelly. I don't know. Xueji was even worse off. He had long since collapsed to the ground. How could Song Qingshu deal with that kind of terrifying pressure? He was worried about the fate of his clan, so he quickly looked over to see Song Qingshu standing there proudly, and Patriarch Sunflower lying in a pool of blood. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Impossible! Impossible! How could you break through my domain? There should be no one in this world who can break through my domain. Patriarch Sunflower struggled to get to his feet, but no matter how hard he tried, he failed. However, he had no time to worry about that. He was in a state of extreme shock. He was confident that he was the first martial grandmaster to comprehend a domain, and that he was only half a step away from breaking through the void. That was why he was so confident that he was invincible in the world. But how could he have known that his proudest trump card, the domain, would be broken by his opponent in a head-on fight? Song Qingshu wasn't feeling too good either. His clothes were riddled with holes, and his clothes were stained red with blood. Clearly, he had been injured by Patriarch Sunflower's innate gangqi. He said slowly, "There's always someone better than you out there. Patriarch, your martial arts might be unparalleled in the world, but it's easier said than done to be invincible in the world." No, that's not right. Patriarch Sunflower's eyes had long since lost the brilliance of the past. Right now, he looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. I understand now. The aura you released just now doesn't belong to this world. It doesn't belong to this world. I didn't lose to you. As he spoke, his voice became softer and softer. A martial grandmaster of a generation had finally passed away with endless regrets. Song Qingshu was silent. If he hadn't had a negative distance exchange with the mysterious fairy of the Nine Heavens, and understood the aura of the heavenly Tao on her, he might not have been able to defeat Patriarch Sunflower, even if he had used Sword 23. Just then, a dark figure suddenly pounced on him. It was Prince Beijing. This chapter is not yet finished, please continue to the next page. Zhao Shiqing's heart went cold when he saw Patriarch Sunflower's defeat. But as a fierce and ambitious man of his generation, he wasn't willing to accept his fate so easily. He wanted to seize any chance to turn the tables. In his opinion, after that terrifying move from Patriarch Sunflower, even if Song Qingshu could defeat him, he would still be at the end of his rope. The wound and bloodstains on his chest were proof of that. As long as I seize this opportunity to kill him, I'll be able to turn the tables. And without Patriarch Sunflower as a martial grandmaster, it'll be easier for me to act after I ascend to the throne. Watch out! Wang Ziding and the others were thinking the same thing. They felt that Song Qingshu had won a Pyrrhic victory, and was probably unable to resist a sneak attack from a grandmaster. They hurried over to help, but Patriarch Sunflower's pressure was too terrifying. Their legs were still weak, and it was too late to help. Song Qingshu frowned. He had to admire Prince Beijing's ingenious timing. But he didn't move at all. Soon, a beautiful figure in yellow flew from behind and blocked his way. Zhao Shiqing, you killed the Emperor and the Crown Prince. Today, I'm going to clean up the family. It was the yellow-robed woman. She used her 9 godly claws to fight with him. Prince Beijing was ranked first among the island of chivalry's messengers of rewarding good and punishing evil. Naturally, his martial arts were extraordinary. But the yellow-robed woman was Huang Cheng's last disciple. Although she was young, she had long reached the Grandmaster realm. The two of them exchanged more than 10 blows, and it was difficult to determine the winner in a short time. Prince Beijing's heart was cold. He knew that he had lost his last chance to turn the tables, so he didn't have the mood to fight with her. He found an opportunity to break through the window. As long as he could keep his life, he would have a chance to make a comeback. But just as he jumped out of the window, a pair of big hands pressed on his shoulders. He instantly felt the inner energy in his body dispersing. He was shocked. Absorbing Star's great art. Ren Wuxing laughed. Your inner energy is very pure. It's just the right amount to make up for the energy I used to kill your subordinate. No. Prince Beijing struggled desperately, but he was restrained by the Absorbing Star's great technique. How could Ren Wuxing let him escape? Almost in an instant, his originally plump cheeks became a little shriveled, and his hair lost its luster. Obviously, his cultivation had been sucked away, and he had become a cripple. Song Qingshu said in a clear voice, Prince Beijing has been captured. As for the rest, surrender and you will be spared. Surrender and you will be spared. The soldiers under his command shouted. Prince Beijing's most loyal subordinates had already been annihilated by Ren Wuxing and his men. When the rest saw that Patriarch Sunflower was dead and Prince Beijing was captured, they didn't have the heart to resist anymore. They dropped their weapons and knelt on the ground. Prince Beijing's rebellion was quelled just like that. Lin and regained its former peace. The streets and alleys were filled with stories of Song Qingshu's great achievements in quelling the rebellion. Song Qingshu's prestige had reached a whole new level. Originally, Ren Wuxing had suggested that he end all his troubles once and for all and directly ascend to the throne. However, Song Qingshu still rejected the suggestion after thinking about it for a while. Originally, he was a great and loyal minister. If he ascended the throne, the atmosphere would change. Later, under Liao Yingzhong's suggestion, he appointed the son of Prince Rong and Prince Rui, Prince Zhaochang, who was only a few years old, as the new emperor. Many knowledgeable people in the southern Song dynasty could vaguely guess what was going on. But first of all, Song Qingshu did have the merit of stabilizing the heaven and earth. Second of all, he did not do anything improper. Therefore, even the most stubborn Confucian scholar could not say anything. These days, Song Qingshu was busy digesting the power vacuum left by Prince Beijing, the Jia family, and the Shi family. He remembered when he first arrived in Lin An, the forces here were intertwined, which made it difficult for him to move. Now, all the obstacles were gone, and he could calmly place his confidants in various key positions. One day, he was reading official documents in Prince Qi's mansion. Suddenly, Ren Yingying came to him with a complicated expression and told him, Huang Rong wants to see you. End of this chapter. Chapter 25:17. Song Qingshu was startled. After a long time, he said, Invite her in. Ren Yingying nodded and went out to bring Huang Rong in. In order to avoid gossip, she directly dismissed the servants along the way. Looking at Ren Yingying, who looked gentle but naturally exuded a graceful and noble temperament, Huang Rong secretly sighed. The women around him are always so beautiful. While Huang Rong was sizing Ren Yingying up, Ren Yingying was also secretly sizing her up. Even though they had met before, she still couldn't help but be amazed by Ren Yingying's beauty this time. Her travel-worn body and the worry between her eyebrows didn't hide the charm and grace that flowed from her bones. That kind of extremely mature charm was far beyond that of ordinary girls. Ren Yingying secretly sighed. No wonder that guy is willing to risk the world's condemnation. After bringing her to the door of the study, Ren Yingying smiled slightly and said, Chief Huang, Qingshu is inside. You can go in by yourself. She did not call Guafurin as she was worried that the other party would misunderstand her. After saying that, she smiled and nodded slowly, leaving the two alone. Huang Rong was secretly grateful. She thought that Miss Ren was really as understanding as the legend said. However, she stood at the door with her hand on the door but did not press it. She was quite hesitant and did not know what identity she should use to meet him. While she was hesitating, the door opened from the inside. Song Qinshu stood at the door and looked at her quietly. "Come in." It's eye-catching to stand at the door. Huang Rong blushed slightly and walked in with her head lowered. She casually found a stool and sat down. She opened her mouth several times but stopped herself. "Rong-er, I also know why you are here." Song Qinshu poured a cup of tea for her and handed it over. But this time, the descendants of the great Zhou dynasty rebelled and killed the king. It is really a bit troublesome to clean up. Huang Rong sighed. How could I not know? It's just that I never thought that Jingij is the descendant of Chai Rong. If I had known earlier, I would not have let him be so rash. Song Qinshu nodded his head secretly. If Huang Rong had known about this earlier, with her intelligence and wisdom, she would never have let them be fooled by Prince Beijing. Song Qinshu thought for a moment and said, "After all, you didn't participate in the previous rebellion. Many people on Peach Blossom Island can testify for you. I'll find a way to get you out of it so that your family won't be harmed." Huang Rong was silent. She knew that this kind of rebellion and regicide would result in the execution of 9 generations. The other side must have done their best to protect them. "Thank you, but we can hide on Peach Blossom Island. With my father's protection, we don't have to worry about being wanted. I'm here to ask you something else. Is Jinggu doing well?" "That's right," Ji Yinshu said. Song Qinshu shook his head. "How can he be doing well?" Prince Beijing took control of the palace. He was worried that something might happen, so he deliberately destroyed his dantian. I'm afraid he can't practice martial arts in the future. But compared to his upcoming punishment, it's nothing. Every dynasty had its own unique laws, but the treatment of rebellion was almost the same. 9 generations of the family would be executed, and the main culprit would be executed by 1,000 cuts. Huang Rong naturally knew about this. Her tears suddenly came out. "Qinshu, I beg you for one thing." Song Qinshu stopped her from continuing. "I know what you're going to say, but you're known as the female Zhuge. Tell me, in this kind of situation, how can I save him when all the civil and military officials and all the people are watching?" Huang Rong bit her lips. "Actually, there is a way to save him." "What way?" Song Qinshu was stunned. Huang Rong said, "You can find a criminal sentenced to death in the heavenly prison and use the disguise technique to disguise him as Brother Jing. You can use the trick of replacing him." Song Qinshu said in a low voice, "I've thought of this, but Brother Gua is so famous. Once people see that he is still alive, it will cause an earthquake in the court. You know how powerful the imperial censors of the southern Song dynasty are. Even I can't bear the consequences." Huang Rong bit her lips, so after exchanging him, let him stay away from the southern Song dynasty. He can go to Mongolia. I've heard about what happened between him and Huazheng. Now that Temujin is dead, there are no obstacles between them. Huazheng has always been good to him and will definitely take good care of him. What about you? Will you go to Mongolia and hide your identity? Song Qinshu looked at her quietly. Huang Rong shook her head. Huazheng is there. If I go, everyone will feel uncomfortable. What's more, my father and I don't like the life in Mongolia. I will definitely stay on Peach Blossom Island for the rest of my life. Song Qinshu sighed, but Brother Guo may not be satisfied. He may not be willing to give up everything here. After going through so much, what else can he not accept? Huang Rong smiled sadly. The country that he worked so hard for most of his life turned out to be his enemy. The people that he worked so hard to protect now want to kill him. What else is there for him to stay here? Arrange for me to meet him. I have something to tell him. I'm sure he will be willing to go to Ma Bei. Song Qinshu nodded. Okay. Next, he arranged for Huang Rong to meet Guojing in prison. He did not arrange for anyone to eavesdrop. The two talked for a long time. When Huang Rong came out, her eyes were still red. A few days later, Guojing was pushed to the market and executed by 1,000 cuts. The people all over the world clapped and cheered. Of course, there were also many who sighed. Even after many years, there were still people who refused to believe the truth. There were various versions of the legend. Some said that Guojing did not actually die but lived in seclusion among the people. Some said that Guojing made up for his mistakes by joining the army to serve the country. There were also some who swore that they saw him in Ma Bei, Mongolia. After that, Song Qinshu still had a lot of things to do. The Jia family was confiscated, and Li Wan came to ask for help. After all, she was the daughter-in-law of the Jia family. She could not stand by and do nothing. However, the Jia family had committed such a serious crime. The law was merciless. They still had to confiscate what they had to. The only thing Song Qinshu could do was to try his best to protect some people and arrange for people to take care of them secretly. The Shi family was almost the same. However, Shi Miyuan was indeed an ambitious person. He took the initiative to commit suicide in prison and left a will. He took all the blame on himself and saved many of the Shi family's children. The Shui family also pushed out a few scapegoats. After all, many people saw the Shui family and Prince Beijing working together. There had to be an explanation. After taking care of these matters, the Shui family began to enthusiastically arrange the marriage between the young miss and the Prince of Qi. Originally, Song Qinshu had said that Shui Baochai alone was enough, but Shui Ji was unwilling to agree and insisted on bringing Shui Baoqin as well. After all, the alliance between Song Qinshu and the Shui family was still a little fragile. He was also worried that his refusal would cause unnecessary misunderstanding, so he reluctantly agreed. Seeing that the Shui family was busy preparing for the marriage, it seemed that they were faintly overshadowing the Wang family. Wang Ziding also felt uncomfortable. He wanted to help, but when he thought about the matter of his sister-in-law, Li Qingluo, he became angry, which made his hands and feet tied. However, Song Qinshu did not pay too much attention to these. With his current identity and status, marriage was just a means. It was difficult to pour too much emotion into it. At this moment, he looked at the two letters asking for help from thousands of miles away. It turned out that Korea was asking for help from the southern Song dynasty. The Mongolian expedition to the east was like a hot knife cutting through butter. Korea was in imminent danger, so they asked the Song dynasty to send troops for the sake of their former friendship. Obviously, these letters were sent in groups. They were asking for help from the southern Song dynasty, which was so far away. It was obvious that they were desperate. The other letter was written by Fu Junyu to Jia Baoyu. She reminisced about the time they spent together and asked him to help persuade the southern Song emperor to agree to send troops. Obviously, she still did not know what had happened in the southern Song dynasty. Song Qinshu did not expect that when he assassinated Temujin in Mount Lupan as a member of the Shueiyue sect, he wanted to divert the trouble to Dongying. Who would have thought that Korea would be the first to suffer? However, it was not unexpected. During the marriage contest in Western Xia, he killed many Mongolian masters as the guru Fu Kailan of Korea. At that time, Temujin was furious and sent a 10,000-man team to seek justice. Now, if he wanted to take revenge in Dongying, he must first take down Korea as a springboard. Song Qinshu decided to make a trip to Goryeo. After hearing the news, the women around him all disagreed. Reningying frowned and said, "Qinshu, I don't say anything when you flirt with others. But this time, for the sake of two Goryeo women, is there a need to put yourself in danger?" The girl in yellow also said angrily, "What's more, the two sisters remembered Jia Baoyu from Western Xia. Back in Western Xia, she had witnessed Song Qingshu flirting with the two Korean women in Jia Baoyu's appearance. Seeing them all talking at once, Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. It's really not what you think. This time, I'm not going for those two. I'm going to deal with the Mongolian main force. The Mongolian main force? Ren Yingying was startled. Song Qingshu nodded. Although the Mongolians suffered a great defeat at Mount Lupan by assassinating Temujin, it didn't hurt them to the core. The Mongolians still have their strength. If they finish dealing with Korea and Dongying, then their invincible cavalry and Dongying's navy will invade south. That will be a nightmare for all the countries in the Central Plains. I've been planning for so long. I want to lure the Mongolians to the sea. Only then will I have a chance to destroy the invincible Mongolian cavalry. You want to fight on the sea? Ren Yingying's eyes lit up. The girl in yellow nodded repeatedly. That's right. Although the Mongolian cavalry is powerful on land, once they're in the water, they won't be able to withstand a single blow. That's right. I want to use this opportunity to completely destroy the Mongolian main force so that they won't be able to invade south again. Song Qingshu recalled the history in his memory. He had always been following the flow of events, following the flow of history in his memory. It was just that he had moved it forward a bit. Seeing that his analysis was reasonable, the girls no longer tried to stop him. Ren Yingying was the only one who secretly pulled Song Qingshu aside and said, Qingshu, if the Mongolians really are completely destroyed, then the countries in the Central Plains will no longer have this external threat. In fact, it won't be very beneficial to you. Song Qingshu naturally understood what she meant. He smiled. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Goryeo should be the last piece of the map. Everything will end there. Chapter 25:18. Song Qingshu asked the girl in yellow to stay in Lin, and to help Ren Yingying deal with government affairs. She was a princess and had the support of the Jianshan Academy. She needed her help with public opinion. Xue Baochai was also asked to stay. Although they needed to spend time alone to warm up their relationship, Song Qingshu had no time to care about it. After all, the matter in Goryeo was urgent. Xue Baochai was the link between the Xue family and the Xue family. Without her as a lubricant, the communication between Prince Qi's mansion and the Xue family would be quite troublesome. As for the Jia family and the Shi family, Song Qingshu had no time to deal with them now. He would leave them there until he was free. Anyway, Liao Yingzhong was here. He would do his best to take care of them. As for the Lin family, although Song Qingshu had joked with Lin Chaoying about marrying Lin Daiyu, Lin Chaoying clearly had no such intentions. As for his eventual victory, the Lin family had tacitly acknowledged his status and acknowledged the fruits of his victory. Song Qingshu also specially went to the Lin family and talked about his care for Lin Pingzhi and his friendly relationship with the grand disciple of the ancient tomb sect. Finally, Lin Chaoying believed that he would not shake the Lin family's position. Although the Lin family was in charge of finance, it was small. Compared with the Jia family, the Shi family, the Wang family and the Xue family, its influence in the officialdom was still limited. Song Qingshu did not mind doing a favor. After all, a great grandmaster was like a nuclear deterrent. He had to give her face. Unfortunately, he did not see Lin Daiyu on this trip. He did not know whether Lin Chaoying was deliberately guarding against him or not. Of course, Song Qingshu did not say that he fell in love with Lin Daiyu. He was used to using marriage to ensure the relationship between the two parties. He despised himself for this. In those TV dramas, young masters and young mistresses resisted their families' marriages and pursued freedom of love. Why was it that when it came to me, I actually enjoyed it? Before leaving, Lin Chaoying suddenly asked, "What is the relationship between you and Xiaolong Nu?" Song Qingshu was stunned and let out a long sigh. More than friends but not lovers? In fact, he and Xiaolong Nu already had a good impression of each other. However, because of Yang Guo and his philandering ways, there was always a slight barrier between the two of them. They were never able to take the last step. He suddenly understood Yang Guo's feelings in the original work. Although Xiaolong looked innocent and pure, she was actually very meticulous and sensitive. When she got jealous several times, she would often leave without saying goodbye. Where could he find her in this world? In Helen City, he heard Ho Shibai mention that he saw her in Mount Heng. He didn't know what she was doing there and where she was now. Lin Qiaoying frowned. Apparently, she did not understand what he meant. I heard about the things you did to help her. I can see that you treat her well. I also asked Li Macho. She said that Xiaolong also likes you. So I don't understand what you two are doing. I don't want you to experience the regret between me and Wang Zhe in the past. Lin Qiaoying's eyes were a little wet. Wang Zhe and I have been competitive all our lives. Unfortunately, our strength is almost the same. Neither of us is willing to admit defeat first. So we wasted our lives. When we finally had the chance to be together in our old age, we were separated not long after. There is no such problem between you and Xiaolong. Although Xiaolong's martial arts are good, she is far from you. Why are you so hesitant as a man? Song Qingshu looked strange. You want me to use force? Lin Qiaoying sneered. I have heard all kinds of rumors about you over the years. It seems that you have used force many times. Why are you pretending to be a gentleman here? I have already given up. Song Qingshu looked embarrassed. That, Senior Lin, can you give me a token or something? Lin Qiaoying was stunned. What do you want a token for? Song Qingshu laughed and said, If I have a chance to see Xiaolong, I will tell her that all this is the idea of her ancestor. She will definitely doubt it. Then I will take out your token and everyone will be happy. Lin Qiaoying was speechless. Get lost. As soon as she finished speaking, she slammed the door, almost hitting Song Qingshu's nose. This is not too much to ask. Touching his nose, Song Qingshu shook his head and left. However, Lin Qiaoying's words reminded him that he was indeed too rational in dealing with the relationship with Xiaolong. To put it nicely, he respected Xiaolong's opinion too much. To put it bluntly, he was indecisive. When the relationship between a man and a woman was in an impasse, someone must take the initiative. It was a little difficult for Xiaolong to take the initiative, so he could only rely on himself to take the initiative. But what was the use of saying so much? He didn't know where she had gone, and it was unknown when he would see her. After arranging things in Lin and Song Qingshu set out to leave. Before leaving, Xue Baochai found him. I want to give you a gift. Song Qingshu was immediately happy. The gift from Sister Bao must be very special. Xue Baochai's face turned red. Don't call me that in the future. You are obviously much older than me. Song Qingshu couldn't help laughing. I can't help it. When I went to Xixia, I was afraid of being seen through by you, so I kept reminding myself to pay attention to the way I address you. As a result, I got used to calling you that. Recalling the process of the marriage between them in Xixia, Xue Baochai was in a trance for a while. He can hear. Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. How can I be angry when I receive praise from a beauty? Xue Baoqin stuck out her tongue. She looked much more excited than Xue Baochai. Xue Baochai secretly sighed. Her younger sister had heard of Song Qingshu's legend before and admired him a little. Now that she knew that she had been betrothed to him, she was overjoyed. In comparison, Xue Baochai was much more helpless. She quickly gathered her thoughts and said, Brother Song, I know that you are going to deal with the Mongols on the sea. It just so happens that Baoqin has been sailing with her people since she was a child. Later, she gradually became responsible for the Xue family's ocean business. Don't be fooled by her young age. She is better at sailing than many experienced sailors. Moreover, the ocean trade often involves fighting with Japanese and pirates. She also wants to be good at it. This time, the Shui family's fleet is coming back from the trade. Her fleet will accompany you to Liaodong. It should be able to help you. Song Qingshu couldn't help but be overjoyed. He originally thought that the gift Shui Baochai mentioned was Shui Baoqin. Although she was indeed a very beautiful girl, it was difficult for him to be moved by her beauty. However, the other party brought such a powerful ocean fleet. It was completely different. Only then did he remember that on the ship to Sichuan, he heard Madame Ruan mention that the Ruan family and the Shui family were two big royal merchants. The Ruan family was responsible for the inland trade, while the Shui family was responsible for the ocean trade. At that time, she also specially praised the Shui family's second daughter, Shui Baoqin, who was young, beautiful, and capable. She managed the ocean trade in an orderly manner. It must be said that the Shui family was really generous this time. Thinking about it, Shui Ji must be a little nervous. After all, he used to be an ally of Duke Beijing. This time, to a large extent, he had no choice but to change sides. He was worried that after the situation stabilized in the future, he directly took out his trump card to show his goodwill. No wonder he said that Shui Baochai alone was enough, but the other party insisted on Shui Baoqin. It turned out that this was what he meant. Song Qingshu had to admit that he was a little dissatisfied with the Shui family before. After all, the two sides used to be enemies for so long. But now it seemed that Shui Ji was really an ambitious person. Once he chose a side, he would not hold back. If he had a progress bar of favorability, the other party's move would have almost exploded his favorability. This gift is really too perfect. Song Qingshu hugged Shui Baochai and kissed her on the cheek. Thank you. Shui Baochai blushed and pushed him away in a flurry. What are you doing? There are so many people watching. At the side, Shui Baoqin was eager to see the world in chaos. Sister, why are you worried? Anyway, you are engaged, so it's not rude. In the end, Shui Baochai could not take it anymore and hurriedly said, I'll leave her to you. I'll be leaving first. Seeing Shui Baochai's figure running away in a hurry, Shui Baoqin could not help but sigh. Brother Song, sister isn't as heartless as me. Don't mind her. She needs time to digest. Song Qingshu nodded. I've been with her for as long as you have. I know about her, so you don't have to worry. A bright smile appeared on Shui Baoqin's face. That's good, Brother Song. I'll bring you to see my fleet. Oh no, this will be your fleet in the future. Song Qingshu had to admit that Shui Baoqin's personality was warm and cheerful. In addition, she was beautiful and had a natural affinity. They had never met before, so it was reasonable to say that there was some distance between them. However, after a few words, the two of them soon became familiar with each other like old friends. Shui Baoqin led Song Qingshu to visit the Shui family's fleet. Along the way, she intimately held his hand and introduced his identity to her subordinate. It did not take long for the main figures of the entire fleet to know their son-in-law. Brother Song, which direction are we going next? Are we going directly to Liaodong? After the tour, Shui Baoqin blinked her big bright eyes and asked. Song Qingshu thought for a moment and said, Since we are going to the Qiantang River, we must pass by Hangzhou Bay. Let's go to Peach Blossom Island first. Shui Baoqin's lips curled up slightly, and there was a trace of mischief between her eyebrows. It seems that the rumors are true. Brother Song really has some relationship with gang leader Huang. Chapter 25-19. Song Qingshu couldn't help feeling embarrassed. You misunderstood. I'm going to find Island Master Huang. Brother Song, you don't need to explain. I understand. Shui Baoqin smiled brightly, making Song Qingshu feel very uncomfortable. But then he thought about it and realized that there was nothing to be guilty about, so he gradually relaxed. Shui Baoqin passed down the order and the fleet set off for Peach Blossom Island. She accompanied Song Qingshu the entire way, explaining to him some general knowledge about the fleet. At the same time, she also inquired about some of his great achievements. He had to admit that being looked at with adoration and adoration by such a beautiful girl was very pleasing to any man. The two of them got along very well. The fleet sailed along the Qiantang River. When the fleet passed by Shanin, Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment. In the end, he didn't order the ship to stop. Time was of the essence. It would be better to wait until the general situation was settled before returning to see Shin Bijuan and Qing Yaojia. He didn't know how they were doing. When they reached the mouth of the sea, they headed southeast. Facing the vast sea, they couldn't help but feel a sense of awe towards nature. No matter how high a person's martial arts were, they were still as small as an ant in the sea. The hull of the ship rose and fell. Xue Baoqin noticed that he was a bit tired and said, "Brother Song, the road is still long. Why don't you go to your room and rest first?" Song Qingshu nodded. He really did have some things to think about in his room. Xue Baoqin brought him to a room. Looking at the clearly feminine decorations and the faint sweet fragrance in the air, he couldn't help but be stunned. "This room," Xue Baoqin smiled shyly. "This is my room. Brother Song, you don't mind, right?" Song Qingshu laughed. "Second Miss Xue's room is the dream of many men. Why would I mind? But for now, I can rest here for the time being." At night, Xue Baoqin blushed. "If Brother Song doesn't mind, you can also sleep here. In any case, we have an engagement." Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't expect her to be so enthusiastic. He couldn't react for a moment. Xue Baoqin pursed her lips and said, "Brother Song, will this make you think that I'm too unreserved? I'm not like this to others. It's just because I've always liked you that I." Seeing her embarrassed look, Song Qingshu laughed and hugged her soft waist. "Compared with your sister, your temperament is really different." Xue Baochai showed a sad smile. "It's mainly because I've been traveling with my clansmen since I was a child, visiting all kinds of famous mountains and rivers. Later, I went to Nanyang to do business, so I didn't have so many rules and regulations. My character is wilder than those girls in Lin and City. My father often scolded me because of this." Song Qingshu shook his head. "On the contrary, I feel that it is very good for you to dare to love and dare to hate. Those eldest young ladies of Lin and Prefecture are indeed too ruthlessly bound by the feudal ethics. They are not as cute as you. By the way, remember to teach your sister more in the future." Hearing that he didn't mind, Xue Baochai smiled sweetly. "Brother Song, you're really different from others, but I'm afraid it'll be difficult for my sister to change her temper." "That's true." Song Qingshu nodded in agreement. He couldn't imagine Xue Baochai being so proactive and enthusiastic. "Brother Song, you rest first. I'll go out and see the situation of the fleet." Xue Baochai nodded slightly and turned to leave. However, Song Qingshu grabbed her and said, "Don't go. Stay with me and talk." Xue Baochai was stunned, but she didn't refuse. "Okay. Baochai, your bed is so soft." "Well, my skin has been sensitive since I was a child. I can feel the slightest bit uncomfortable, so I always make the bedding very soft. Sit next to me." "Okay." After a while, Xue Baochai's voice suddenly trembled a little. "Brother Song, didn't you say that I'll talk to you? You can talk now." "Brother Song, it's daytime now. If you want, I'll accompany you at night." "Why does it have to be at night? Isn't it good now?" Xue Baochai's face was bright red, but she didn't say anything. She acquiesced to his actions. When he entered her soft body, and felt her tense and trembling body, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. No wonder so many people pursued power. It felt good. Whether it was the rumors about Xue Baochai or the sight of her attracting the attention of passers-by at the dock, he could imagine how many young men regarded her as the goddess of their dreams. They were worried about their gains and losses, afraid that they would leave a bad impression in her heart if they did anything rude. But now, he could have her so easily. Not long ago, she was the future imperial concubine. However, after the man's possessiveness, Song Qingshu also regained his rationality. It was not because of power that he could have her so easily, but because he was charming enough. The admiration in the girl's eyes and the reaction of her body couldn't be faked. After spending 2 days on the ship, accompanied by a warm body, they finally arrived at Peach Blossom Island. Early in the morning, the sound of a flute was heard, followed by a clear voice. Peach Blossom Island has always minded its own business with the Xue family. I wonder why you have come with so many people this time. Song Qingshu hurried out of the cabin and looked at the thin old man standing at the top of the mast. He smiled and said, "How have you been, Island Master Huang?" Huang Yaoshi's expression changed when he saw it was him. "It's you." "Greetings, Island Master Huang. I came here with a request," Song Qingshu said respectfully. Although his martial arts had long surpassed the other parties, no matter how he looked at it, the other party was still his senior. Huang Yaoshi turned his head and walked away. "Don't speak, I don't agree." Then he used his lightness skill and disappeared into the fog. Song Qingshu was stunned. "I haven't said anything yet. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" He hurriedly said to Xue Baochai, who was giggling, "Let the fleet wait here. I'll go to the island first. There are many formations nearby, so don't rush in." Xue Baochai smiled. "Yes, we'll wait for you here." Song Qingshu also used his lightness skill and rushed in the direction where Huang Yaoshi disappeared. Huang Yaoshi's lightness kungfu could be considered one of the best in the Wulin world, but unfortunately he ran into Song Qingshu. In addition, he had been to the Peach Blossom Island before, so Huang Rong had explained to him all the strange formations on the island. After a while, Huang Yaoshi saw Song Qingshu standing not far away with a smile on his face. He had to stop and his face was as black as charcoal. "Did you come here to show off in front of me?" Huang Yaoshi snorted and looked at the handsome man in front of him with hatred. No father would be happy to see a man who had stolen his daughter. Moreover, they had such a shameful relationship. Huang Yaoshi was known as the Eastern Heretic. If he saw someone he didn't like, he would either break their legs or cut off their ears. The most annoying thing was that he couldn't beat this guy. "Island Master Huang has misunderstood. I came here to ask a favor of you," Song Qingshu said. Huang Yaoshi snorted. "Don't even think about it. I won't agree to your relationship with Rong. Although I don't like that brat Guojing, what are you two doing? I don't want the world to criticize her." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "Island Master Huang has misunderstood. I didn't come here because of Rong but because of you." "Because of me?" Huang Yaoshi suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He had never heard that this guy was interested in men. Song Qingshu continued, "I have always admired Island Master Huang's knowledge of astronomy and geography. This time I came to ask Island Master Huang to come out of seclusion." "You don't need to be sarcastic. If I hadn't spent so much time and energy on these perverted techniques, I wouldn't have let you come out unscathed." Huang Yaoshi snorted. Song Qingshu hurriedly explained, "Island Master Huang has misunderstood. This time I want to deal with the Mongolian army on the sea. I need to know the weather conditions of the sea in advance. After thinking about it, the best person in the world in this area is you." "Oh, deal with the Mongolian army?" Island Master Huang was quite surprised and quickly fell into deep thought. "Father, did something happen?" At this moment, a gentle and pleasant voice was heard from the distant peach blossom forest. Looking towards the direction of the voice, a beautiful young woman was standing under a peach tree. Her face was truly a beautiful combination of peach blossoms and human face. "A few days ago the right side of my nose kept running. Although it seemed to be getting better, now the left side is starting again. Previously I saw a book friend mention using normal saline solution to clean my nose. Today I went to the community hospital and prescribed some. I don't read much, so I hope you're not lying to me. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.